Right. Thank you guys for coming in. If you hit the heart and share, try to get me pushed out into the algorithm.
Hey man, how's it going?
Doing pretty good, brother. Hope you are.
Yep, doing pretty good. Thanks for asking.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was interested in your prompt. Evolution is false. Why do you think that?
Sure. So I believe in microevolution. I think that's testable and observable, but anything outside of that, I think, is obviously inferred.
Okay.
I don't see any evidence for macro.
How about the 98% of DNA that we share with chimps and bonobos? What do you make of that?
I wouldn't say that we share it, but I would say that it's similar. But that would prove common designer just as much as it would common ancestor, right?
How does it... So, common designer, maybe I can understand your point that Lucy, right, our shared ancestor with apes, specifically chimpanzees, could be like an unintentional designer, right? Because Lucy, who's the common ancestor, right, of chimps and humans, Homo sapiens, I don't think they intentionally designed our DNA this way. It just kind of happened to be by random mutations. But without going off on a tangent here, right? I think it is observable that we do share 98% of our DNA with these other mammals, and that points to a shared common ancestor. What do you refute in that statement or that claim?
The conclusion. So the 98% DNA, that's actually not true anymore since they've actually done the entire genome of the chimpanzee. It's actually not 98 anymore. It's something like, it's in the high 80s if I'm not mistaken now based off the calculations. But even if I was to grant it, even if I was to grant that, it still doesn't mean common ancestor. It could also point to common designer. So the DNA that I have in me, DNA is a building block. It tells your body how to build structures and things of this nature. So the DNA in my body that tells my body how to build a hand with 5 fingers, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, teeth, ears, and things of this nature is probably going to be pretty identical in an ape because it does the same things. So I would expect that. It's just God using the same code. Matter of fact, it's so good that we copy it.
So I guess why does God, keep that similar to just us and apes, and why does a banana, we do share DNA with bananas, for example, in trees. How come they're so fundamentally different? Why did God decide to design things in such different ways then?
Well, I think if we're being intellectually honest, you just asked me, why did God do something? That's a God question, brother. There's no way that I could answer that. That question is literally to God, why he did it. So I can't answer why he did something unless he says why he did it. I can just look at the evidence. Right, okay, so I can't answer why God used the same DNA. I know that it's so good that we copy it. We copy it today. Like, for example, the way that he did it was he uses the same DNA, the same building code in different things that he wants to create. We do the same thing. Microsoft Excel, Word, PowerPoint, all of these different programs have millions and millions of the same line of code because they do the same functions. So instead of rebuilding it again, they just use the same code. We copied what God did at the beginning of creation.
Okay, so how did we, can you describe the process then of how we, ended up sharing DNA by design with apes? Can you just walk me from, start to finish, or will you quote
your premise? Genesis? Yeah, I've already contended with your premise. I do not agree that we share it. I agree that we have similarities, but sharing is different. That implies that one come from the other.
I thought you did say that God intentionally designed us this way where I guess first let me ask you, what's the difference between similarity and sharing?
Well, fair enough. If you want to closely define it, then that's good. I can go with that. Sharing implies that one got it from the other.
Okay.
But if you want to say that God created it and we all share it because He created it, I could go with that either way.
Okay, so then, so I'll rephrase then. Like, I can agree with you that we don't share by those definitions DNA with chimpanzees. It's just similar, right? So I guess what we can talk about is the origin point, right? The origin point, I would argue, is we share a common ancestor, right? We may not share the DNA, but we do share a common ancestor who branched into different species, right? I'm assuming you would refute that, correct?
Yeah, I don't think there's any evidence for that.
Okay.
Do we have any evidence that's testable and observable that's not inferred?
Not to my knowledge, Red. Again, I'm an amateur. I'm not a scientist. I'm an accountant, so I won't have facts for you. But I'm just going off of what I've read, and I guess I can agree that inference is the best we have. But I would imagine you have an alternative, right? The alternative, I'm guessing, is the Book of Genesis.
Yeah, I would go with that.
Okay, so I think that deserves conversation, right? I think now it comes down to, well,
Okay.
which is more likely, right? I think we have a plausible inference with the theory of evolution. I think you can. It's kind of like a crane, right? We don't know where the crane came from, but you can see how it was kind of like developed. It's like a movable crane. I'm sure you've seen cranes, right? And you could drive it around. But I think
Yeah.
the Book of Genesis is more like a sky hook, right? You can see a hook dangling from the sky, but you don't know where that hook is attached from, right?
Okay.
And so I'd like to explore that sky hook, which is the story of Adam and Eve, right? Where God just kind of took some dust and like just made them, right? Or made Adam, and then Adam took some of his rib cage and just made Eve, right?
Well, God took Adam's rib cage, but yes.
Yeah, sorry. I messed up the story a little bit. But I guess I can help you to explain Lucy, right? The shared ancestor. But I have a hard time explaining the mechanics of how God made Adam. Maybe you can help me fill in those gaps and we can talk about which is more likely.
Well, if you're asking me to explain a miracle, then clearly I couldn't do that. That would be outside the realms, and I think it would be an unreasonable ask. So I can't qualify a miracle with science. That the literally the definition of a miracle will be something outside of science. So I couldn't explain that through science because that would be a miracle.
Okay.
So I have to look at other avenues in an effort to prove. Like you said, we use Occam's razor. So, for example, the things that I can test in the Bible that says clearly I can't test miracles, so it would be unreasonable for me to try to have a standard when I know that I can't test it because the definition is outside of science, if you will. So I couldn't test a miracle. So the things that I can test, if they are plausible, then therefore it holds credence to the things that I can't test. Like, for example, the Genesis also talks about Noah's flood. So that makes some predictions because the way that God said He did it wasn't necessarily a miracle. Now, there's certain things that He caused, like the animals to go to the ark, that we could classify as a miracle. But the flood itself doesn't really have to have any miracle parts of it that caused it or anything like this. So I should be able to put that to the test. There should be archaeological evidence all over the planet, and that's exactly what I see. So when I see that evidence that supports that being a worldwide flood, and it fits the creation model more using Occam's razor than it does the evolutionary model, that lends credence for me to believe that He created Adam.
Okay, so I think using Noah's flood is a bit weak of an argument, and the reason I say that is because, I mean, look at planet Earth. It is like, what, 70% comprised of water or more? I forget the exact statistic, right? When glaciers melt, it causes water levels to rise. It's actually very obvious that the world would be flooded, regardless of biblical prophecy. I don't think that a prediction about a world flooding equals God, right? I think that it's just an observation, and you write it in a book, and it doesn't really mean God is real. It just means the person was very keen at observation, right? The way, like, we predict atoms, right? I'm sorry, we don't predict atoms. We've literally discovered atoms. Doesn't mean we're closer to divinity than the people who wrote the Bible. Do you have, like, another piece of evidence that...
Yeah, well, my point was that it makes predictions. So, like dinosaur soft tissue and DNA fragments being found in dinosaur bones, So as far as I'm aware, unless somebody wants to add another option, there's only basically two options when it comes to these things. Either it's the biblical model that says the dinosaurs unalived in a flood, or it's the evolutionary model that said they unalived 65 million years ago. So if I find soft tissue and DNA fragments inside of dinosaurs, that fits the flood model more than it does the. So you can believe that there was floods, but dinosaurs having soft tissue and DNA fragments doesn't fit your model if you still clearly believe that they were 65 million years old. Another one would be like mitochondrial Eve. The Bible makes some predictions that everybody on the planet can descend from one woman, Eve. And sure enough, we can see this in our mitochondrial DNA. Every single person alive today can trace their mitochondrial DNA to a single woman.
Okay, so I have a few contentions with that point. The first is the dinosaur, right? Like, you're aware that not every single dinosaur died 65 million years ago. There were still a few that survived, and could some have drowned that preserved the soft tissue? Sure. So I don't think that...
When did the last T-Rex unalive?
I don't have exact dates, right? But I think
So
a Google search would suffice to determine that.
Yeah, about six. I was being as generous as I could to your contention. So they're actually finding it in things that are millions of years older than 65 million. I was giving you the easiest because that's the earliest. That's supposedly when the last dinosaur. But soft tissue is actually found throughout the geologic column. It's not just the later dinosaurs. The earliest organisms, they're reviving DNA and bacteria that's over 200 million years old. That's older than the dinosaurs. Okay. This shows that these things are the same age, not different ages, because clearly DNA has a half-life of 527 years inside of fossils, and so you cannot get DNA out of something that lived over 200 million years ago.
So then but aren't you making the argument that we found tissue from things that survived? I guess first I should ask what was Noah's flood, right?
About 4,500 years ago, according to the Bible.
4,500. Okay, so you're saying that because dinosaurs have soft tissues preserved, they must have perished around 4,500 years ago? I just want to make sure I'm saying there's two models. You got the evolutionary model that says these things unalived 60 million years ago, 65 million years ago. Okay. And then you got the flood model that says they unalived 4,500 years ago. I can make some predictions based off of these models. For example, the evolutionary model, you cannot say that soft tissue and DNA will last. We know what the degradation rates are, and they don't last that long. However, you can make that prediction with the flood model because it's only been 4,500 years. So we would expect to be able to find some. And that's what we're finding. Okay, so you made the claim that we can preserve any of that soft tissue, right? If they perished 65 million years ago. Where do you get that fact from?
The degradation rates. So I can give you the paper here. Let's do DNA. The DNA degradation rates. I'll give you the name of the paper here because I like to be able to bring sources. So the name of the paper is The Half-Life of DNA in Bone Measuring Decay Kinetics in 158 Dated Fossils. And there's plenty. I'm just giving you one so that I can go. But there's collagen degradation rates, there's DNA degradation rates. They give you the half-life of these things. So we know what the half-life, and this is just one paper. There's a lot of papers on DNA degradation, I would imagine. I just literally just picked one. But they all say the same thing. They tell you what the half-life is of DNA, and none of them get it out to 65 million years.
The half-life of DNA. Okay, so I'd have to look into archaeological evidence of how researchers have determined the biological makeup of. In fact, actually, aren't dinosaurs mainly predictions and inferences rather than exact models, right? Like, for example, when you think of a dinosaur, you think of like a giant alligator, right? That like walks on two legs, like very scaly, reptilian-like, right?
Sometimes it depends, yeah, but okay.
But now we're starting to realize that, okay, well, we don't actually have enough evidence of that because we don't have sufficient, fossils, of such degree to predict accuracy of what they look like. In other words, we may not actually have the right DNA. That's my point, right? And that lines up with the evolutionary model. We don't have the right DNA. We can't predict everything about these dinosaurs because it doesn't exist, right? These are inferences we're making based on skeletal structure.
Sure, but they are finding DNA. So I would imagine, and I can make a prediction, probably within the next 20 years, they're going to find sequenceable DNA. Haven't done that yet, but that's my prediction. I could be wrong, but I'd say within the next 20 years, they're going to find and be able to sequence dinosaur DNA.
Okay, but we haven't found that yet, which assumes that we don't have the sufficient remnants.
So they have found dinosaur DNA. I can give you the paper on that if you'd like.
Okay.
But they haven't sequenced it yet.
Okay, so sequencing, that's the determination.
Being able to read it. Yeah, so they found it but DNA can't last 65 million years, but they haven't sequenced it to be able to read it.
Okay, gotcha. But yeah, honestly, I'm not in a position to kind of speak from this angle about like archaeological history and evidence because I just don't have the knowledge on that, right? So
I got you, man.
I don't think we can have a fruitful conversation around that. But I
Fair.
think my point, though, right? Like my general point is the miracles, right? The reason you believe in them is not because they're factual; it's that you have faith that the messengers captured the miracles correctly, right?
Well, no, I think I explained it pretty well when I say that the things that I can. So the Bible says faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So my faith has to have evidence that goes along with it. So it's not evidence lacking. It has evidence to back it up, and that's why I said earlier that the things that I can put to the test, then I determine, should I trust the things that I can't put to the test? Well, if it's true about the things that I can put to the test, then that lends credibility about the things that I can't put to the test.
Right. So what I think is interesting is that one thing you put to the test is you're like, well, the flood must be real because we have evidence of dinosaurs, right? So I'm assuming that's one of the tests you use. But I think where that kind of falls apart is, again, I can't talk about dinosaurs specifically and like its like DNA preservation. But what I could talk about is fitting like every single animal that has survived over 4,500 years on an ark is implausible, right? Perhaps maybe you might chalk it to a miracle, right? That like the lions and the bears and the penguins aren't like tearing each other apart in this like, in this ark.
That usually just comes from people not reading the Bible and getting internet arguments. No disrespect. The Bible says that God told, I'm getting my names mixed up. God told Noah that he only had to take the land-breathing animals that had the breath of life in their nostrils. So that you don't have to take fish. You don't have to take insects. So people always come up and they think millions and millions of animals. And the conservative number is actually about 6,000. So because he only had to take the basic kind of animal, right? So he didn't have to have lions and tigers on the ark. That's the same kind of animal. They can diversify because they can still reproduce, so we know that they're from the same kind of animal. Lions and tigers can reproduce and have ligers. Really, there's some differences about them as far as the way that they look, but that's microevolution, and I would contend with that. I would agree with that. So it was only about 6,000 animals that Noah had to take on the ark. Right? And then, so it's not millions, so 6,000 adolescent animals on an ark that's longer than a football field, that's 3 buses, city buses, end to end wide and 5 stories tall, is more than enough room. Secondly, did the lions have to eat meat or would they tear each other apart? No, the Bible says that before the flood, that God gave the animals, all the animals, to include the lion, grass and herb yielding seed. Now you can say you don't believe it, but the Bible clearly teaches it. And it says in the end times, the animals will go back to the way that God made them and eat grass again. So when they got off of the ark, God gave them permission to eat meat, clearly because something was different with the atmosphere. You can see this when the people stopped living to be 900 years old after the flood. Clearly something was different. We can get into why we believe that, but clearly something's different. Evolutionists believe this too. They just don't think it's the flood. But they can see that the pre-flood, the millions of years ago, if you will, the dinosaur age, had hyperbaric-like conditions. More oxygen content, greater oxygen content, and a lot more air pressure. If I was to bring back the Brachiosaurus today, it could not get as big as it once did because of the atmosphere that we live in today, it would be a dwarf dinosaur.
Oh,
So,
sorry to cut you
yeah,
off.
the animals didn't eat meat. Now you're fine.
So you're telling me like what the tigers and bears that were in the ark were not eating meat,
Yeah,
and that just comes from the Bible?
not necessarily from the Bible. I can give, well, that part about that, yes, does come from the Bible, but I can substantiate that and give
Yeah,
you an
how again?
article on little tyke.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if you have
show
it,
me like bears 4,500 years ago, just like not eating, like
I
not
can-
having a carnivore diet. As
yeah, I
well
can give you an
as-
example. The example, yeah, the example that I'm going to give you is called little tyke. This
Okay.
was a lion that was born in a zoo, and the lion refused to eat meat. So you can look at, there's plenty of articles on this. The people that owned the zoo, it was very expensive. It was time consuming too, because when they went to feed the lions, they had to feed the lions, feed the other animals, and then they had to come back and specifically feed little tyke because it had a special diet. You don't want an animal that just has special requirements because, one, it's more expensive, and two, it takes more time out of your day to have to worry about this one lion now. And you're free to look this up. Little Tyke lived its entire life and never ate meat. It was a movie lion. It worked on sets with movies, and it ate grains, milk, eggs, and vegetables, basically. It would not eat meat its entirety of its life. So the zoo owners actually put out a $1,000 reward for anybody that could come and get Little Tyke to actually start eating meat. There's a very famous picture of the zoo owner holding up a lamb chop to the lion, and the lion looking away. It would not eat meat. So
Okay, would
the-
you consider little tyke to be an outlier to the lion species as a whole?
Okay, so but hold on. Is the thing now that it doesn't happen, or is it not possible? Because my burden of proof is just to show you that it's clearly possible.
Right. What I'm saying is that it's improbable, right? Outliers
Well, you can
occur.
you can
right?
say
I
that
never-
it's improbable, but it's not impossible. So even, I mean,
Of course, not
if
impossible.
yeah,
But
so then that's
unlikely. That's like me saying I think there's a flying spaghetti monster running around in space. Is it impossible?
But I
No.
don't-
But do you think that's true? Probably not.
But I don't, in no disrespect, I don't think you want to do a probability argument because you believe in abiogenesis, brother.
So, atheism doesn't claim abiogenesis. It just says we don't know, and we're just going off
No,
the best
that's
that we currently
that's
have.
not, no. If it that's there's a dichotomy. So in the history of the universe, there's only ever been two options: either deity or natural causes. So natural causes would be evolution. Evolution teaches abiogenesis. So I don't know is just a cop out of trying to say you don't understand abiogenesis, but that's the dichotomy. So
I
if
think-
not one, it has to be the other.
So I think you're misinterpreting how atheism views life, right? Like, it's not saying like a mitochondria just magically turned into a sentient being. That's not what happened, right? But I feel like abiogenesis gives the framing that that's how things work.
If
Yes or no?
atheist, you mean, well, let me ask a clarifying question. When you say atheist, you mean somebody that does not believe in God.
Someone that doesn't believe in current doctrines that attempt to explain the creation of the universe, such as the Abrahamic religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, and the gods of those respective practices.
Yeah, so you just change the definition of atheist because the word has theist in it. So if you're a theist, you're somebody that believes in God. And if you're an atheist, it's somebody that doesn't believe in a theist, which is a God. So I don't think we should just change definitions in an effort to try to fit us. I think we should use the definitions for what they meant. That way it don't get confusing. So an atheist means that they don't believe in God, and the only alternative would be abiogenesis.
Right, but I think where it gets muddy is that no one really has a definition of what God truly is, right? We've kind of mainstreamed it into believing it's this intelligent mind that created the universe. Some can argue God is the eternal universe that isn't conscious, right? So I do think there's context. But again, I'm not here to kind of focus on semantics of the ontology of God. I think I'm more interested in verifying miracles, right? That would support like a flood being more true than evolution, right? Because I am playing the probability game and what's likely versus like illogical.
Okay, so again, if we're doing the probability, then abiogenesis is which one's more unlikely? Lions eating grass, or life coming from chemicals?
So again, like life first developed as like single-celled organisms, right, which were a result of the swirling of chemicals that happened in the earth that heated at the right the Goldilocks temperature. Eventually,
Hmm.
started to create move like these single-celled organisms moved around, right,
So
through like
has
the
that
water.
ever been tested and observed?
Again, inferenced, right? It's inferred.
I know, I know, but so the answer is no. It had not. It's never been tested or observed life coming from chemicals, right?
I mean, you can conduct an experiment, right? You can go into your local sewer, just like take a spoonful of water,
I
put
know.
it in a jar.
I'm just trying to. I'm not trying to be
So
rude. I just want to walk you through something really quickly. So the answer is no. We have not observed life coming from chemicals. Then my next question would be: although it is an outlier, have we physically tested and observed lions, excuse me, eating grass or vegetables,
for
being a
sure.
vegetarian and not eating
I
meat?
mean, little
Yeah.
tyke,
So the
right? Okay, I
probability
get
game
it.
goes in my favor.
But again, I think it's unlikely that you had 6,000 little tykes on an ark that was flooding. That's my point.
Okay. Again, that sounds improbable, which I don't think
Yeah.
clearly there wasn't 6,000 lions, there were 6,000 animals. There only had to be two lions. So your outlier now only your outlier dropped to just a 50% margin. So I think those are pretty good odds. However, abiogenesis has never been tested or observed. So now I ask you, what's the probability of two lions
Mhm.
being vegetarians compared to
Okay.
life or lions coming from a single-celled organism?
Okay, fair point. All right. I mean, I'll grant you that, right? If truly you had two lions that were fertile and repopulated the entire earth, then I can understand the story a little better, right? But I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
counter with something else, right? So we know for a
Okay.
fact that there were humans all around the earth 4,500 years ago, right? You look at the continent of what's modern day China, right? You look at what's the continent of modern day America. Like you had people on like different parts of the continent. So my question is, how was Noah able to like round all of them up in his like human lifespan, and how did he travel without the invention of cars or planes? And how did he like get them to come into the ark? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, where was the ark before the flood?
I don't know. I'm unfamiliar with the specifics of the story. I'm open to
Right. So
hearing
if
that.
we don't know where the ark was at, then why do we assume that we know where the animals were at? And then why do we assume that they had to travel this great distance to get there? If we don't know what the pre-flood world looked like because that world was utterly destroyed by water, if we don't know where the ark was at and we don't know where the animals are at, how in the world can we ask a question like, how did he get all the animals there? You don't the animals might have been right next to this ark. We don't know that. Now clearly I would imply the Bible literally says that God caused the animals to go to the ark. So that's the direct answer, right? That's a miracle. I couldn't test or observe that because the Bible literally says God caused it. But I want to show you that your question is invalid because you're inferring that you know where the animals are at before the flood. You're inferring that you know where the ark was at before the flood, and you're inferring that the world was the same before the flood, which is all three of
Okay,
those
we
are
can
straight
actually.
inferences.
All right, so I guess now we have a discussion point. We can verify what the continent looked like 4,500 years ago based on inference, right? And the shifting of
Okay.
tectonic plates. So this was after Pangaea, the supercontinent, when all of land mass was together in one, right? We know that land was split apart through like oceans, similar to what it is today, and it's almost impossible for people around the world to come together at an arc regardless of its position, right?
So are we getting Pangea because the continents look like they fit together?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
So
that's
do you know that they
millions.
have to?
That's
Yeah, but do you know
millions
that
of
that's
years ago.
just they don't fit together like that at all?
Right.
They make
But
it
I'm arguing
like they make it.
4,500 years ago, right? I'm not
Okay,
arguing
but
Pangea. I just threw that in as a
okay. Well,
reference.
why bring up? It's kind of weird to bring up Pangea if you're not arguing Pangea. You said
I
literally
was
we know what the continents did because of Pangea, and now we're not arguing Pangea.
no, no. So I just I brought that in to tell you that we didn't have a supercontinent. Supercontinent 4,500 years ago. That's the only
Right.
reason
So
for Pangea's
well,
reference.
your argument goes to uniformitarianism, right? This was an individual by the name of Charles Lyell who brought in uniformitarianism. When you see the geologic column here right? All of these different layers. Before Charles Lyell, when they looked at this, they saw catastrophism, meaning they saw evidence for a flood. And Charles Lyell actually literally wrote in it was his memoirs or a letter to a friend or something like that, that his job was to remove Moses from geology. So he come up with this, or not necessarily come up with it, but he popularized, that's why he's called the father of modern day geology, because he popularized this idea of called uniformitarianism, meaning that the way things are now is the way that they've always been. And that's what you're implying now. Because we see these rates happening today, therefore it's been like this throughout time, uniformitarianism. Okay. But we know that's just not necessarily true, because we can look back in the fossil record, and even evolutionists would have to agree, things are not now like they used to be. And I mentioned the dinosaurs, but I don't have to I can show you dragonflies. Dragonflies today get about this big. In the fossil record, they get a foot long, right? And centipedes got 7 foot long. Today, they get this long. 7-foot centipede compared to this today. And that's because of the hyperbaric-like conditions. So the world was totally different before the flood. And now applying uniformitarianism to it afterwards is not a fair comparison.
So again, what is like the proof that the flood even happened 4,500 years ago for you to make that claim, right? But
sure.
Again,
hydrologic sorting, hydrologic sorting, polystrata fossils, dinosaur graveyard, soft tissue, and DNA fragments found in dinosaurs. All of these fit the flood model more than they do the evolutionary model.
But those bones, right, from those dinosaurs did not like die 4,500 years ago. They're carbon dated to be well beyond that, millions of years ago. Exactly.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you said carbon dating, because most people just say carbon dating when they mean radiometric dating. Okay. So carbon dating actually only goes back to 50,000. The half-life is 5,000. So you are correct to say that they are carbon dating dinosaur bones. Absolutely. Unfortunately for you, because there's carbon in it to date, means that it's less than 50,000. So you are correct to say that there is radiometric material in dinosaur bones. Unfortunately for you, it just proves that they're less than 50,000 years old.
Again, that's just one of like many tests, right? So from a carbon perspective, right, the test checks out. Again, I don't know the specifics because this isn't my field of study, right? But I'm just using logical reasoning, right? And to kind of go back to the flood, so you're telling me that there weren't humans across different parts of the globe 4,500 years ago. I just want to make
of course,
the same page there.
Yeah, of course there were. The reason for the flood was to unalive the humans. So I'm sure that there were humans dispersed throughout the planet, I would imagine. I mean, obviously that's an argument from absence, but the reason for the flood was to unalive them. So I'm sure that there were humans. Yes. Okay,
so your argument is that they just didn't survive the flood, and thus the tribes in, say, like China and North America, right? You think they're the survivors of the people who went into the ark?
Yeah, and we can prove this, right? You can prove this through mitochondrial Eve. Everybody on the planet today can trace their mitochondrial DNA to a single female, right?
So I don't think you're using that in the context that you mean. So mitochondria is just the powerhouse of the cell, right? So what do you mean that it's being traced to one mother?
Yeah, so mitochondrial, no problem. Mitochondrial DNA is passed on in the female lineage, right? So you got the X and you got the XY, you got the females, right? So with the female lineage, the mitochondrial DNA is quote unquote different than our regular DNA that we have in our bodies. And it's passed on through the females. So every person alive today can trace their mitochondrial DNA to a single person that lived in Africa. They call this mitochondrial Eve.
Okay. But is that the same as like the Eve from Adam and Eve?
I wouldn't make that claim, but I mean, clearly it's there's no way for me to know that, for me to make that claim. But I mean, clearly it's pretty strong evidence, right? It supports what the Bible says.
Well, not at all, actually, right? You're saying mitochondrial Eve is very different than actual Eve. So I don't.
I didn't. Come on, brother. How did you get that out of what I just said? I literally just said I could not make that claim because I'm being honest in saying I don't know, because we can't tell by the mitochondrial DNA really what her name was. That's just what they're calling her. What we can tell is that it went back to a single female. And then what I said was that that's pretty strong evidence. Even though I'm not making that claim, I think it leans in that direction, right? It supports the claim.
I'm saying it's weak evidence, right? You're saying that it's tying. It could be tying to like the Adam and Eve, because I'm assuming that's why you mentioned one woman, right?
Well,
I'm
it's not
making a
just
logical
all your
assumption.
major animal species have a mitochondrial Eve. Your
Yeah,
bonobos have a mitochondrial Eve.
yeah,
Your apes have a or your chimps have a mitochondrial Eve. Your gorillas have a mitochondrial Eve. We have a mitochondrial Eve. My
right.
point is that it goes back to a woman, not an ape.
We
So the Bible
we
makes
can
some
agree on
predictions.
that. We
Okay, well,
agree
hold,
on that, right?
let me show you. The Bible makes predictions, right? The prediction that I can make off of if what God said is that he created Eve from Adam and that she is the mother of all living, by God stating that, I can make a prediction that everybody on the planet eventually came from Eve. That's my prediction. However,
Yeah.
if your evolutionary mindset, our mitochondrial DNA should go back before Eve. We should be able to trace it to apes. We should be able to trace it to bonobos or whatever. We don't. We trace it back to Eve. And that the bonobos trace it back to a bonobo. And the gorillas trace it back to a gorilla. Not a universal common ancestor, brother.
So I'm saying that it is. So I guess I'll ask you this: where did mitochondrial Eve come from?
She was in Africa.
Okay, cool. And where did like how did she get there? Like poof magic, or you just don't know?
No, but we can't tell by the DNA how she got there.
Okay, but you're making a prediction that it's from Adam's ribcage, right? That's your prediction.
No, here's the prediction, right? The prediction is that God says that Eve is the mother of all living. So here's the prediction. Everybody alive, every human alive on the face of the planet can trace their DNA to a female, Eve. That would be the prediction. Can we do that? Everybody on the planet. Now you can say that you have to give me another contention as to why it's not Eve, right? Because that prediction has come true. A prediction according to evolution should say we should be able to trace it back to bonobos or chimps or apes. We don't. We trace it back to humans. So
That's
if we
not
have a
what we were
universal common
saying.
ancestor, oh my goodness. Do you believe in a universal common? Do you believe that we came from apes?
I believe that we shared common ancestors with.
Okay, so then why can we not trace our mitochondrial DNA to the apes? Why does it go to a human?
I'm assuming you mean a Homo sapien, correct?
But come on, man. Yeah, a human.
Okay, I just want to make sure, right? Because I feel like you're making a logical leap from Adam and Eve.
I feel like you're just not answering the question now. Why do we trace our mitochondrial DNA to a human, not an ape?
Well, because we mothers born children, right? And that's kind of how we all got here.
Okay, all right, fair. Yeah, man. So you got any additional questions? I'll try to answer them best I can.
I guess I'm still trying to understand that logical leap, like, because God said we come from Eve, there, and we see that we come from mothers, you're saying therefore God might be true, right? That's
I
like
think
the
you're rephrasing. I don't want to claim you're being dishonest, brother, but I think you're just rephrasing it. Let's walk through this very slowly. So
Yeah,
you can
that's
look
like
this
the
up. I'm not
question.
telling you, but do you concede that every single person alive today can trace their mitochondrial DNA to a human female? Would you concede that that's true?
For sure, yeah.
Okay. If the Bible says that every single person alive today, it says Eve is the mother of all living. If the Bible says that, would that what we just said about mitochondrial Eve, it doesn't have to be proof, but does that evidence support or negate that prediction?
I don't think it has anything to do with the prediction, and I'll tell you
Okay.
why, right?
All right. Yeah, okay. Tell me why, because this is going to be very important as to whether you stay up here or not, because now I think you're just going to be dishonest. So go ahead. Tell me why.
Yeah, so Eve, so that mitochondrial Eve, that woman in Africa, right, had to come from somewhere. What I'm arguing is that she came from parents who may not have resembled Homo sapiens the way we see. Hence evolution, right? That's how evolution works. You're telling me that, well, I don't know, we could just stop right there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate the conversation. I'm going to move on, okay?
All right, man. Hey, thanks for having me up. Thanks for this chat.
Yeah, man.
Take
Thanks,
care.
man. Appreciate it. Yeah, guys, the Bible makes a prediction that we can all come from one woman, and then mitochondrial Eve showing that we all come from one woman clearly doesn't support that prediction. That's just ridiculous. Absolutely outrageously ridiculous. Of course it supports that prediction. You can contend against another argument, but clearly it supports the prediction, guys. Outrageous. Let's see. I got a line of people, so I'm trying to go in order here, guys. I'm not trying to skip anybody. But a lot of these guys that requested up are no longer requesting, so let's start at the top. There we go. Bobby, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on?
Hanging in there, brother. Hanging in there.
Yeah, I heard that. I just have a couple questions. How long ago do you think the mitochondrial Eve that you speak of existed?
How long ago do I think it existed? About 6,000, according to the calculations.
Okay, what do you have to say about the human bones they found that have been carbon dated in between 10 and 50,000 years old?
I'd take a look. I would contend with radiometric dating.
Okay,
Yeah, so carbon.
I'm sure they've radiometrically dated these as well, and they've also found similar,
Yeah, my point is I would contend with the radiometric dating. One, the amount of assumptions that goes into radiometric dating makes it flawed. The fact that it doesn't work on items of known age and it's assumed to work on items of unknown age makes a big problem. One, you have to assume the parent material because, like, for example, carbon-14 is made from the sun's rays coming into the atmosphere. Nitrogen-14, then it strikes, and nitrogen-14 captures it, and then it becomes carbon-14. Carbon-14 then settles down to the planet, and then plants absorb the carbon-14, and then animals eat the plants that absorb carbon-14, and other animals eat the animals that absorb carbon-14. So the atmosphere has to be what they call carbon neutral, meaning as much carbon-14 that is, the sun is the constant, right? The sun's rays coming onto the planet is the constant. So you would assume that the Earth is carbon neutral because the sun's constantly bombarding it. So the amount of carbon-14 coming into the planet should match the amount that's burning away. So if the planet is carbon neutral, then you know how much the parent material is when the animal unalived, right? Because the planet's carbon neutral. So the individuals who come up with carbon dating calculated how long they thought it would take if you popped a new planet into existence, how long they thought it would take before the planet to become carbon neutral. And I think they calculated like 10,000 years. So then, because they believed in evolution, they automatically, quote unquote, knew the Earth was older than that. So they just assumed they didn't have to worry about the carbon neutral problem. They just assumed it was neutral. But it's not. We know that the carbon-14 is not, the atmosphere is not neutral. Some years you'll get less carbon-14 created in the atmosphere, and some years you'll get more. Solar storms or solar flares can put more carbon into the atmosphere, as to where if you have a solar storm that has a huge magnetic field, it will push more particles away from the Earth, and it will have less carbon-14 in the atmosphere. So you have to assume how much carbon-14 was in the animal when it unalived so that you can date it, or object, whatever you're dating carbon on. You have to assume the parent material. Well, you don't know what was in it when it unalived because you wasn't there. So you don't know how much to compare the half-life to, or how much of it's left that's decayed away, because you don't know how much was there. Secondly, you have to assume the decay rate remains constant. If the decay rate changes, you got a problem. Then you have to assume, thirdly, that there's no, it's a closed system, meaning that the radiometric material can't be brought in or leached out. And unfortunately, there's just nowhere on planet Earth that this happens in a closed system. And to my friend that I was talking to earlier when I talked about carbon-14 being found in dinosaur bones, I usually don't bring this up because I contend with carbon-14 dating, but it kind of sticks them in a rough spot. Because scientists, the reason they say carbon-14 is found in dinosaur bones, because if you find it in dinosaur bones, that means it's not 50,000. It's less than 50,000 years old, because carbon-14 has a half-life of 5,000, so you can't measure it after 50,000. So they have to contend with the carbon-14 that's found in dinosaur bones. So then they say, well, it's leaching, meaning that water can bring in additional radiometric material, or it can wash out radiometric material, meaning that you can't date it because it washes in and out. Well, if that's true, then you can't use radiometric dating if it can leach.
Okay, so Eve was roughly 6,000 years ago, right? And then if I'm burst up on my Genesis, the flood happened sometime after, right? We know there's the Nephilim. We know there's whole populations of people throughout the earth. When do you contend that the flood happened?
According to the Bible, about 4,500 years ago-ish.
So in 1,500 years, they populated the earth enough so that there were whole groups of people scattered throughout the earth, breeding with giants.
Well, I don't believe the Bible doesn't say that they were breeding with giants.
Okay, okay, all right, that might be on some other stuff.
Now, so I know people get that, but it says in Genesis, I'll just go over this really quickly. It says in Genesis, it says there were Nephilim in the earth in those days. That word means giants. But the Nephilim were here before and after the sons of God came into the daughters of women and bare children unto them. Just read the verse. It says that there were Nephilim in the earth in those days and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of women. So first of all, people are implying that the sons of God means angel. We don't know that. Secondly, even if it was, their children did not become Nephilim. Their children became mighty men of old. The Nephilim were here before and after that. People just don't read that verse at all.
Right, okay. So, okay. Got it. So Eve came about 6,000 years ago. In 1,500 years, there were humans and Nephilim. What do you have to say about, well-documented evidence, not even just evidence, straight up information about Egypt existing, thriving 4,500 years ago? I mean, there's a lot of information, a lot of scrolls and things and stuff 4,500 years ago in Egypt.
Great question. Let me pull it up before I got different stuff ready to contend this. Egypt history, older than the flood. So the oldest writings that we have, they date around the flood, not really before the flood. There's some contention right there about 100 years or not. So it's not that we have writings that's older than the flood. It's what the writing claims about the lineages that are quote unquote older. But here's what we know about Egyptian lineages is that they absolutely lied about their lineages in an effort to either bolster their kingship or in an effort to wipe out other kings. So they played with the lineages because the Pharaoh was in charge, so he could literally just say, I want you to remove this people. And so let me support that claim really quickly. We know that there was a Pharaoh, and this is what we know. So why would we assume that it didn't happen clearly younger than this? This is just, we know this because this happened more recently, right? So there was a Pharaoh by the name of Akhenaten, and Akhenaten actually changed the Egyptian gods, going from many different gods into one sun god. And so what he did was he moved the capital outside into another area. He created his own city or town, if you will. And again, his name was Akhenaten. If you ever see any statues of him that remained, he's the one that had the pot belly and the long cone head or whatever. So he took the Egyptians and changed their religious back to one god. So then after his reign, there was a pharaoh by the name of, I'm going to spell this because I'm not going to say it, Semenkhkare. That was the next pharaoh. The pharaoh after him was Tutankhamun. The pharaoh after him was Ai, A-Y, that's how you spell his name, Aya, or Aya. And then the pharaoh after him was Horemheb, Horemheb. Now this pharaoh literally went to the scribes and said, remove everybody all the way back to Akhenaten. Erase them from history. So they literally did this. The only reason that we know about this is because Akhenaten actually moved the city outside. So it took them a while to go and destroy the city and reuse the blocks. So when they reuse the blocks, sometimes when you turn the block around, we can actually see the inscriptions. But he tried to have them removed. And so if you're looking at their history, the Egyptian history, which is what we're clearly claiming here, there's gaps in time where entire pharaohs and entire lineages were just removed from the records because the pharaoh said so. So that's how I would contend with those. And archaeological evidence lines up with the biblical stories, not the made-up stories that was subject to change by the pharaoh.
So okay, but so you would contend that the pharaohs are all, like, all of Egypt's history is directly related to like a near relative of Noah. I mean,
what's funny about that is
documentation from around the same time as the
Yes.
flood. So assuming they're all having 10
So
children, which, I mean, numbers goes into that a little bit, but assuming they're all having a crazy amount of kids, it would still take 60 years to get to 1,000 people, right? 120 years to get to something like 10,000 people. You know, you got to kind of assume a lot there.
Right. And the Bible, but you already mentioned the Bible clearly mentions that you can say you don't believe it, but the Bible does contend with that and say that the more that the Israelites were oppressed upon as being slaves, the more that God blessed them and gave them children. So yeah, we would expect a population explosion right there. Now, what's funny is you said, the Egyptians come from the people that come off the Noah's Ark. Do you know what the Egyptians call themselves? They're the people of?
I have no idea.
Where's this at? Come on, where's it at? The Hebrew name is, the Egyptians call themselves the Mizraim people, the M-I-R-Z-E, I think it is, people. That's what they call themselves, and they've been called that for centuries. Do you know where this derives from?
No.
It derives from the grandson of Noah, who was Mizraim. That was his name. The grandson of Noah was Mizraim, and he went into the land of Egypt. He went to colonize that area. And funny enough, that's what the Egyptian people are called to this day.
Well, when did the Egyptian people start calling themselves that? Because my contention back would be that the actual Hebrew Bible wasn't written until around 500 years before Christ existed.
Right. Yeah. And before that, from the best of my understanding, it's not what they called themselves. They called the land something different. So I can't see what they called themselves. I see that they called the land a black land. That's because the Nile would come in and flood and leave the black mud all over the ground, which made it really fertile. So they referred to the land as the black land. But I can't see where they referred to anything as far as themselves before that. They could have. I wouldn't argue if they didn't. I just think that's interesting.
Well, I mean, sure, it's interesting, but if I'm writing a story that I believe explains the origins of worlds in the country, right, obviously somewhere in there I'm going to say, oh yeah, in this country where they call themselves the Mizraim, well, you know, this guy that I believe is the direct ancestor of these people, he was actually, you know, Mizraim or whatever, right? Like, you know, I don't think that you could use that because that would rely on data that was created after the origins of the data that you're referring to.
Well, I would agree with you, but that's not the only bit of evidence. Like, we can find evidence of Joseph. We can find evidence of them coming into the land. So it's just one piece of the puzzle that fits. Like, I mean, they've got Joseph's body head or whatever that they made. So Joseph went into the land of Egypt, and Pharaoh had a dream, and Pharaoh made Joseph the king of. This is literally why the Jews went into Egypt ultimately. Is because Joseph, right? So Joseph was made second in command. Joseph had a coat of many colors, and so when they found Joseph's house, they found his, or where he lived at. I don't know if this house was still there, obviously, but they found his area, and they found his bust. Right, Joseph had a coat of many colors. They painted it. You can look at the Egyptian architect. They painted it with a coat of many colors. The Egyptians, they used when they made a bust or painted an individual in the Egyptian style, they painted them red. They painted Joseph yellow, showing that he was a more fair-skinned Hebrew, not an Egyptian. So when I look at all of these different evidences, I go with I think the Bible has it gets the benefit of the doubt because we can test these things.
Well, yeah, but now you're bringing up something that happened relatively in real time. Just because Joseph did go into Egypt, and just because there's evidence that he existed in Egypt, does not necessitate that the story of Noah and the creation of the Egyptian people are also equally valid, right? Like, Joseph has numerous chapters and numerous stories about him, whereas the entire story of Noah happens in, like, 6 or 7 sentences for the most part. I mean, obviously his life is longer.
Yeah, it's a little bit longer than that.
And the Nephilim and all that. I mean, you're talking about a very, very, very small portion at the very beginning of a book, whereas Joseph has like pages dedicated to him.
But I don't understand. That doesn't make it any less true or not. I don't understand your contention. If these things that we can prove, I don't want to say prove, but if these things that we can find, do they support the contention or do they hinder it?
Well, the evidence that the Egyptian people existed before and after 4,500 years ago goes
I got you,
directly
brother.
against it, and you're using something that was written 500 years
So
before Christ.
I know. So
in order to explain it
I
away.
showed you written 500 years before. That's all right. That's not true at all.
Yeah, that's when
So
the Hebrew
if
Council. Yeah, that's when it was written. It was a collection of stories. The Israelites, for the
That's-
most part, were like they believed in multiple different gods, and then they had a council.
that's right, but
Right. So
they
it
had
wasn't
they
written
had
down until
they
500
had scriptures, brother. They had scriptures before that. They're chronological. We don't have the earliest ones, obviously, because they're written in papyri. But the one thing that we do have is the meticulous storytelling of the Jews, right? Like, for example, we know who wrote the Torah, right? There's never been anyone ever contributed no one has ever been contributed as to writing the Torah with the exception of Moses. So, right, there's not one individual, none. Right? So to say that just because we either have this story of when we know that some of these books they had a council or whatever, doesn't therefore imply that there wasn't any books before that. That's not how we do it. But again, I think you kind of just glossed over my question. I want to re-ask it because it's what kind of ended the conversation with the last guy. I'm not saying that any one of these things by themselves are absolute proof, but my question is if we can make some predictions based off of what the Bible says and we find them to be true, does it hinder or support the Bible's telling of the story?
I see. Look, I am a Christian, but I'm also a scientist, so I would say that it lends credibility to the overarching story, but it doesn't. Like I look.
There you go.
Have you ever seen the movie God's Not Dead? I think is what it's called, where he tries to give like a scientific explanation to creationism.
Yeah, but it's been a while. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, I have a similar belief as that, right? Like, I'm Christian enough that I do believe that there were these people to exist and that all these stories are based on some truth, but I'm scientific enough to say a lot of the earliest texts describing origin are, the conglomerate of what was stories told by people for thousands of years. And when you try to put this into paper and then translate it and then carry it through time, what you end up with is a story, the same way the Greeks and the Romans had it, that ties to the way it actually happened. But in reality, no, things didn't happen exactly the way that they're saying.
All right. So can you give me an example? Because your implication is that if it's been changed over time, right? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that was clearly your implication, right?
Right? The council is clear evidence that there was a collection of stories and they chose to blend them in a certain way, or pick what is and isn't.
I understand there's I get you, brother. I understand there's been councils throughout history. So can you give me an example of when the Bible has been changed?
King James is the most recent.
What was changed about it?
He removed books. That's changing it. He removed
Like what
stories.
books did he remove?
What
stories did he remove?
One that comes to mind is the one that the Ethiopians still believe in. I forgot the name.
The book of Enoch.
Yeah, that's the most common.
Yeah. So King James. Yeah. So King James didn't remove the book of Enoch. The book of Enoch was not considered to be canonical even by the Jews. The Jews carried it. They thought it was important. It's found amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls. But back then, they had what they called scroll form. That's what they had. They had many different books in scroll form. They didn't have a codex. A codex is a book. So when King James had the scrolls translated, he did not decide what went in or out of the Bible. That's just not true. All he did was take the existing manuscripts in the Textus Receptus style and had them translated. That's literally all he did. He didn't decide that went in or went out. That's just factually inaccurate. Second, they didn't put the book of Enoch in because it wasn't considered to be canonical by the Jews. Again, the Jews carried it, but they did not consider it to be canonical. There's many, many, many problems with the book of Enoch. So just because they had an extra book that they thought was important does not mean that it was part of Scripture. There's a difference. It would be no different than me being unalive today if I'm on a trip and I have my Bible with me and I also have Harry Potter with me. Just because I have Harry Potter with me and the Bible with me does not mean that now Harry Potter is part of the Bible. So Enoch was important to them. They thought it was really cool reading, but they did not consider it to be scripture because it's not part of the Torah. It's not part of the Psalms. It's not part of the prophets.
Okay, that's fair. So then let me, reiterate. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you, part of this is I just Googled it, right? And I think you mentioned this, right? The Apocrypha was later removed, right? I did just Google that. The other thing about translations, too, that's extremely important to capture and recognize here. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that the story you're proposing isn't written in Greek somewhere, or I guess Hebrew or Arabic or whatever the original Tanakh was written in, the Torah was written in. Mm-hmm. But translations are significant in impacting the reading of the Bible, right? Like, the simple concept of time, the way that is communicated could get changed from something that wasn't as finite as days, years, months to something that is finite because the English language doesn't have a way of describing it, right? Like, we have direct evidence that there are German Bibles printed by monks that use the word or use the concept of men sleeping with little boys instead of what today is translated as men sleeping with men in the book of Leviticus, right? So translation absolutely matters and can 100% distort the message.
Yeah, we can see people tried to do that. I can show you the Alexandrian manuscripts where people tried to do it. The only problem is that, so the reason why I want to contend with this is because your implication was that the Bible's been changed because it's been through all these steps, but when you actually look through the science of textual criticism, it actually hasn't been. And where people have tried it, we can see that the Christians didn't pick it up because of the issues that they had where people tried to change it. So the Bible was an open transmission. We can see that it was copies of copies of copies of copies of copies. So if you changed it, but you couldn't get a hold of the guy that went to Ethiopia to change his copy, then you would have a problem there, right? We could tell that something's wrong. These two things aren't matching up. And because the Bible is not like any other book in the world, we literally have tens of thousands of manuscripts. This is how much it was copied. And we can see that the stories, in fact, did not change. We can compare it to the Dead Sea Scrolls. We have the Great Isaiah Scroll. Now, there is textual variance, meaning that people change the sentence in an effort to say the same thing, but it's language. Language changes. For example, in the Bible, in the King James Version of the Bible, when you open it now, God tells Adam and Eve, and he left. I'll go ahead and land this plane. I'll bring up the next person. God tells Adam and Eve to replenish the earth. Well, a lot of people now go, well, that says replenish, so that means that there was a pre-Adamite society. That's not what that means at all. The Old English, when King James was written, the word literally meant to fill once. Now, over time, replenish now means to fill again. So King James didn't, quote unquote, change the Bible. It's just the way we read it. So if there was a new translation that come out today that said God told Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, that's not changing the Bible. That's interpreting, or that's translating the Bible. So I wanted to contend with that because what he said is just factually inaccurate. We can actually see that the Bible has not been changed. Nana, he's been in the comments asking me to let him up this whole time, and the moment I let him up, he's gone. User, what's up, man? All right, Evan, you're wanting up. You're in here. I'll let you up too. User, you there? All right, let's go ahead and disconnect you. What's up, Evan?
Yo, how's it going?
Hanging in there, brother. Hanging in there.
All right. So, you believe in the flood, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that there's never been enough water on the earth to do this so-called flood? And not only has there never been enough water on the planet, and if you understand anything about the water cycle of rain and clouds and everything, it's not physically possible. Number two, also...
Hold on, let's contend with number one.
Okay, go ahead.
So, yeah, do you know there's more than 2 oceans worth of water still in the crust of the earth now?
Sure, but how do those...
All right, so I don't want to do an exact word fallacy because I think I knew what you meant, but I just want to make sure. When you say there's never been enough water on the planet, do you think 3 oceans worth of water is more than enough?
Yeah, but on the
That's
planet.
on the planet right now. Yeah.
So it's
So
in it.
okay, but it's on the planet, right?
Sure.
Okay, so there's more than enough water on the planet right now to flood the entirety of the planet.
I don't think it's on it. If there's 3 oceans stuck in the planet, it's not on the planet. In and on are very different.
Okay, so you want to. Well, it's on the planet because if it was off the planet, it wouldn't be here. So clearly, it's on the planet.
Off,
But
on,
I under-
all different things.
I understand. I understand your argument. I don't want to get over pedantic. So I understand you're saying there's not enough water in the ocean right now to cover Mount Everest, right? Is that what your contention is?
Sure.
Yeah, so Mount Everest wasn't there. You can say you don't believe it, but you can't say the Bible doesn't teach it. This is most of my arguments when people come up to contend with the flood. One, they don't read the Bible, and two, they look at internet arguments. So the Bible says in the book of Psalms that as the waters assuaged, meaning as the water went off the continents, the mountains arose and the valleys sank down. So the flood model says this, and again, you can say you don't believe it, but you can't say the Bible doesn't teach it. In the book of Genesis, God says he founded the land on top of the water. So it says there was a layer of water underneath the earth. Clearly taught. That's exactly what it says. Now, where did the water come from? Because in Genesis, when it started to rain, it only rained for 40 days and for 40 nights, but the water continued to rise for over 150 days. So clearly the water did not come from the rain. The water came from the fountains of the deep. It says the fountains of the deep broke open. So the water came from underneath the crust of the earth to on top of the crust of the earth. Okay, as the water gets on top from underneath, you have this space under here. The continents get extremely heavy. The water goes to the low places. They get even heavier. They break. When they break, this causes the mountains to shoot up and it causes the valleys to sink down. So the water goes to the oceans, which is where they're at now, and this causes the mountains to arise. I can make some predictions based off of this flood model. If the mountains rise up as the water's shedding off of them, then the mountain ranges will follow the coastline. And sure enough, we see literally all over the planet mountain ranges following coastlines. Matter of fact, it's almost all of them. There's only a couple of mountain ranges that don't follow the coastline. It's something like, off the top of my head, like 98% of your mountain ranges follow coastlines.
Gotcha. So yeah, I once again don't go off the Bible and the fact that that the fairy tale says, from the fountains of the youth and under the earth, it comes up like that. I don't,
You said it's a fairy tale? I just want to make sure I heard you right. You said it's a fairy tale?
Yeah, totally.
Can you define fairy tale?
It's totally made up.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. If I said a princess was walking down the road, she saw a frog, she picked up the frog, wished with all her heart that it was a prince, kissed the frog, it became a prince, and they lived happily ever after. Would that be a fairy tale?
Yeah.
Sure. I'm gonna take the same story, identically the same story, and I'm going to add one thing. I'm going to change the kiss to this. Check this out. A princess was walking down the road. She saw a frog on the side of the road. She said, man, she picked up the frog. She wished with all her heart that the frog would become a prince. She waited millions of years and the frog slowly evolved into a human prince to where they lived happily ever after. I literally only changed one thing. I changed kiss to millions of years. And suddenly it went from a fairy tale to something that you absolutely believe there, champ.
No, it's totally still a fairy tale. But let's keep on the aspect of the
So you don't
flood,
believe in,
because
you don't
that's why
believe
we're
in,
here.
I got you. I will, we'll go back, but I just want to make sure because if we're going to throw jabs, we got to be able to take them as many as we can get them. So you said that part's a fairy tale too. So you don't believe in evolution?
No, you do. Evolution is obviously true. Even though the leading paleontologist has disapproved evolution, many of people have also proved evolution. But if you believe in the Bible, you can't believe in science. Those two don't go hand in hand. So that doesn't make any sense.
I do. Can you give me an example where I don't believe in science?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. So what I said about the oceans. So once again, that also number two, if the amount of water that was on the surface of the earth, right, in the 2 months after the first day in the Bible, it says 17 days after the second month, the Bible starts, or sorry, the flood starts, correct? In about
Okay.
2300 BC. And
Okay.
there are not only trade routes, but there are also inscriptions found in other sides of the planet in Hebrew and other religions during the 2300 BC time, making it so that the people who did not know who God was, it would be physically impossible unless they are fish just swimming around and scripting into the walls, in trade routes into the walls. They had no clue about this fake flood that we all believe in now. And it's totally not true. How do you explain there's going to be inscriptions and trade routes during 23 BC?
What people group had the inscriptions?
There, look up inscriptions during 2300 BC.
Oh, I got you. What people group was it? Chinese, Japanese? What people group?
I believe it was trade routes between like the Mayans and certain people like that. So I couldn't give you an exact name of
Mayans? Okay. If I looked up the Mayans, would they have a flood story? I bet you they do. I bet you they got a flood story. Wonder where they got it from. That's the story of Noah.
So did you hear that, or do I have to be here to
When you're off the app, I can't hear you.
Gotcha. So on the Egyptian pyramids during 2300 to 2400 BC, there's religious inscriptions. During the exact time that would have totally been covered by water.
Yeah, I just did the Egyptian thing. I mean, I can go back into it if you want me to, but the Egyptians clearly lied about their chronology, so that wouldn't help you none.
The Egyptians aren't the ones dating that text. The text is being dated by.
How are they? How are they dating it?
The texts are being dated by U.S. scientists. So what they do is we take the sediments the isotopes of sediments, rock sediment, and we take half-lives of them. The same way we age the Earth to the Earth.
So radiometric dating. I would contend with the radiometric dating because you have to assume the parent material, you have to assume the decay rate, and you have to assume that it remains in a closed system, which is you have to assume all of those. So literally, you get the date you want. If you want a longer age, then you just assume more parent material. If you want a shorter age, you assume less parent material.
So you think that taking half-lives of isotopes is a fallacy?
No, it's not a fallacy. But again, you have to, if you're measuring the one, you have to assume the decay rate remains constant. That's an assumption. We've been measuring it now, the decay rate, for 100 years. And sure enough, in the last 100 years we've been measuring it, it stayed constant. But then everything past radiometric 14 literally goes into the billions of years, right? So you're telling me that because we've observed the half-life remain constant, the decay rate remained constant for 100 years, that we can extrapolate it remains constant over 1 billion, and there's no outside factors that could cause it to speed up or slow down. I think that's a crazy assumption to make. Two, you have to assume the parent material. In other words, when you're looking at like uranium to lead, you have to assume that there was no lead in it because uranium decays into lead. So when you find uranium and lead together, you're assuming that all of that lead came from the uranium. You have to assume that there was no lead to begin with there. How do you not know that lead wasn't there to begin with? And sure enough, when we do experiments and look at things, lead is everywhere. It's common, right? It's even called common lead. It's all over the place. So, and then lastly, you have to assume that it's in a closed system, because if it's in an open system, then radiometric material can be washed in and out. So that's a huge problem in radiometric dating. Huge problem. And every single one, every single one of them has those three fundamental flaws. Every one of them.
Okay, then how does that explain how every time you take, materials and you half-life them from their isotopes, you still continuously get 4.6 billion years old, regardless of which sediments or which ones you measure? That's
just not true. That's not true, brother. It's called congruent or concurrent, I think it is, when you get the same, like for example, uranium. right? Because this is the one that they love to use because of the zircon crystals. And there's paper after paper after paper showing, you got to look in the methods that they use. They may have a grouping of 5 zircon crystals that are congruent, meaning that they give the same ages. But they might be surrounded by 15 or 16 different zircon crystals that give different ages. So just to think that there's this universal thing that they find and then therefore it's all the same ages, that's just not true at all.
I'm not saying it's one big rock that just always shows it. I'm saying no matter which rock we test or which material we test, the maximum age that we always get is 4.6 billion years old. And if it's as inaccurate as you're saying, that wouldn't make any sense.
Well, that's because it's calibrated off of the geologic column. The geologic column was invented before, so the geologic column is the dates that they're calibrating these things off. If they get something older than that, they just throw it out because clearly they say it couldn't happen. So they just throw it out. I can give you an example, like is it the Methuselah sun where they date it by the light coming off of it? It's older than the universe. Clearly couldn't happen, right? So they look at these things like outliers, so they discard them. But to say that it doesn't happen is also wrong.
I mean, if you perform a bunch of scientific tests and nothing can be perfect, but if you perform it 100 times and 99 times you get the same result, and one time you have an outlier, I feel like you can say that's an outlier. And that's a flawed test.
But then now you're just assuming you're implying that it's just an outlier and this has happened. You can look at all the papers that they do on the dating. It's not these perfect dates that you're implying. But if I want to grant you, for the sake of argument, I'm going to grant you that radiometric dating works without a fail. Dinosaurs didn't live 50,000 years ago. So they died in a flood. I win. And he left. Yeah, so carbon-14 is found in dinosaurs. So if I grant you radiometric material, if I grant you radio dating, I still win.
Hey,
Eric, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm not. I won't say evolution is completely false because I think I have a different understanding with it. Just simple. God is God. He works in the supernatural. He was there in the beginning. He was there in the end. And he's everywhere in between, right? That's my understanding.
Sure.
What may or may not have been God's creations and how they performed and how they appeared to man is a mystery to us, as it says in the Bible, as all things are a mystery to us, because we don't know the true definitive answer. So I'm fully behind there being dinosaurs. I'm fully behind the whole 6,000 year period. I'm also fully behind everything because it works on God's level. It's supernatural.
Thanks, man.
It's beyond.
Yeah,
it's beyond us. It's beyond us for anybody's comprehension. And
dinosaurs are in the Bible. I love dinosaurs. In the book of Job, it says, "Behold now behemoth," and it describes this animal, and literally the only thing that fits is a sauropod dinosaur. So dinosaurs are in the Bible. I love them.
I get it, and I guess I also hold like a different belief than most Christians. I get corrected about this all the time. Like, I honestly believe that when they say that man was made from dirt and all this other stuff, it also says that man was made in God's image. And at the exact same time, I believe people confuse that because God's image is construed as many different things throughout the Bible. You got a burning bush, for example, as one. So with that being said, I believe that, as the Bible describes, is that God is eternal, holy, and sovereign. He is the spirit of spirits of everything.
Brother, I appreciate you coming up. Do you have a question?
I just want to elaborate a little bit further. Okay. So I believe that Adam and Eve, when they were created, were spirits within the Garden of Eden. And when we were kicked out of heaven, out of the garden,
all right, brother. I'm looking for. Okay. All right. I'm looking for some ops, not necessarily people that agree with me. Okay.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you coming up. I appreciate you coming up. But if you have a question it'd be just me and you agreeing with each other for a lot of stuff. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Sometimes people just need people to agree with them. That's all.
Hey, well, I do. I appreciate you coming up, man. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, man. You too. I do appreciate you coming up. I'm looking for some ops. If I agree with you, then obviously it'll be just you and me agreeing with each other. Let's see. I got people saying let me up, but then they're not requesting. I can't let you up if you don't request. Bob, what's up, man?
Oh, not much. How are you?
Man, I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
Yeah, getting there.
What you?
So I'm just looking at your claims there, and I guess can we start with any evidence for your claims?
Yeah, which one would you like to do?
Well, evolution is false. I guess we start with.
Sure. I believe in microevolution. I think that's testable and observable. Anything outside of that, I do not believe. I think it's all inference. Like, for example, macroevolution, chemical evolution, stellar evolution, cosmic evolution, all of those are inferred, not testable and observable. Okay, you there?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my head around why you would think that it's not testable or observable.
Because it's not. I mean, do you have any evidence that can show me the example of macroevolution?
Well, you've expanded the scope significantly. I initially thought you were talking about, biological evolution.
Like, we can stick with biological evolution. So in that case, I would classify it as genetic information gain, right? So macroevolution would be genetic information gain. Because again, I already concede that I believe in micro. So macroevolution would be genetic information gain. Let me define that. Genetic, because you got to be able to pass it on to your children. New information as far as new structures, new function, new code, new DNA, and it has to be gained from something that wasn't there before. You and I would agree that if we went from a single-celled organism to a fully functional human, this literally happened quadrillions of times. I just need an example of that happening, one example of that happening, that's testable and observable, that's not inferred. And I think that's if it happens every day, everywhere, throughout the history of time, I think asking for one example that's testable and observable is not a hard ask. And I never understand. Well, I clearly understand why evolutionists can't meet this burden is because it doesn't happen. But if you think you got something, I would love to contend with it.
I think we can be very happy about this because we do have an example.
Okay.
Multiple examples.
What you got?
I'm just trying to think of the name of the bacteria. It's a flagellum.
Linsky experiment. Yeah, or the flagellum is what's on the is like the little tails that the bacteria use to swim. So you're talking about like the Linsky experiment or something like that, where they put the bacteria and tested them.
Flagellum was the second part of the name of the bacteria, but yes.
Well, the flagellum is what. The flagellum is the tail that's on the bacteria. Like E. coli bacteria has a flagellum.
So the bacteria I'm talking about has a two-part name, and the second part of that name is flagellum. Right?
Okay, I'm unaware.
And anyway, it is a very basic bacterial construct, and yes, they have observed it because its life cycle is so short. It's measured in hours. They have observed it over multiple generations.
Okay, brother, just tell me what happened. I'm aware, Bob.
Evolution.
Bob, come on, brother, don't get stuck.
Yep. Okay,
come on, man, don't do this.
What is it?
Don't do this to me.
What am I doing?
I'm
explaining exactly what.
Just telling me that it happened is not giving me the evidence. Like, for example, let me show you how to do this, okay? No disrespect. Don't take that as a jab.
So
I don't like, for example, let me show you real quick, right? The Linsky bacteria, right? So what Linsky did was he put it's the longest running evolutionary experiment, and the bacteria started eating quote unquote a new food source called citrate, right? So this is usually a contention that I get that I can contend with that argument, right? I can show you why that's not true. But you're just telling me that these bacteria evolved without giving me anything I can contend with. So how did they evolve, sir?
How did they evolve?
Yeah.
The structure of the mechanism that propels them through the liquid in which they live It mutated in a very low
I believe in mutation. That's microevolution.
Well, really, we're in agreement.
I done conceded to begin with, sir. I believe in microevolution. So having a mutation that makes an existing structure stronger or degrades it in any way, that's micro. That's not evolution. That's not information gain. And that's why I define my terms to begin with. Right?
Oh, okay.
Showing me...
I don't believe in writing words, but I believe in writing letters.
All right.
So
Bob,
evolution happens over millions of years.
We just conceded that it's not. I know, I got you, Bob. Bob, I appreciate you, brother. I'm going to move on, okay?
Yeah, because you're going to block me.
I know, I'm going to run. You can tell everybody I ran, but you're just not bringing me anything, and you're not bringing me anything I can contend with. You just conceded with me. Evolution's not time-based; it's generational-based. That's why we use bacteria, because you literally said that they can have up to 9 generations in a single day, right? You said their lifespan we can see in hours, and I would agree with you. And now you're just going into long ago and far away. So that's why you're not giving me anything I can contend with. So. Oculus, what's up, man?
Hey, I'm here.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Oh, just checking in with you.
Sure.
So I've been chiming in, on the chat, but I'm glad to be able to talk to you. Let me ask you a question first of all. Do you believe in the Cro-Magnon that they existed?
Cro-Magnon man?
Yes.
I don't know. I'd have to look at. I don't do the caveman stuff. Was it a hominid or was it an ape?
Hominid.
It was probably now this is me saying this with my honest answer is I don't know. So if it was a human, then I'll go it was a human.
What about Neanderthal? Same thing?
Neanderthal was a human. They had art. They buried their dead. They had religion. They're literally just us with genetic trait isolation.
Oh, great point. You got me. But let me add this. Now, so you mean that Noah gave birth to the Neanderthals, or the Neanderthals came after Noah, or did they come after Adam and Eve?
I'm gonna change my phone. I guess you're gonna hear my voice change because I got to change my mic out, but I'll still be able to talk to you. Noah couldn't give birth. He was a man.
I'm sorry?
Noah couldn't give birth. He was a man.
Well, I understand, but his wife and his 3 sons were on the boat, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. I'm just saying not that I prescribe to that. Okay.
I don't know if the Nephilim were pre-flood or post-flood. Or not Nephilim, but Neanderthal. I don't know if the Neanderthal were post-flood or pre-flood.
Okay, so the Neanderthal
is that they're just
so they were in the lineage
humans.
So that they could have been in the lineage of Adam and Eve, right?
Well, not could have been. If they're human, they clearly had to be. Yes.
So then, okay. So let's see. So let's see. Cro-Magnon, 60,000 years BC. Adam and Eve, 4006 BC. Great Flood, 2348 BC. Does that math work for you?
How are they dating these things?
Well, if you just Google any site, any Christian site, you'll see that the Great Flood.
You've been.
Well, 1 second.
You've been in the
if you don't mind.
You've been in the. I know, but just let me. You've been in the comments long enough to know now that I've already contended with your dating technique. So, did you have?
No, that's not my dating technique.
You just want me to repeat the?
No. The common.
You just want me to repeat it?
No, I haven't been in that long, but the common Christian era data says that the flood was 2348 BC. What year do you say it is?
It's about 4,500 years ago. So.
The flood? No, that's the creation of Adam and Eve. Okay, then what year was the creation of Adam and Eve?
That's 6,000 years ago. So 4,500 years ago would have been the flood.
Okay, so 6,000 years ago. Now, let's see. So you're saying 6,000 years ago was the flood, and that the Neanderthal are Nephilim, right? And that are you familiar with
the Nephilim or not?
You kind of just said that. Well, okay.
But I messed it up, and I caught myself.
You messed it up, okay.
I said Nephilim, but I meant Neanderthal.
Okay, so you referred to apes. I imagine you're talking about the findings in Ethiopia. So you're equating apes to Africa and to people in Africa. I guess that's what you're doing. So when we go back to 2.3 million, 3.2 million, so anybody created before Adam and Eve were apes. Is that what you're saying?
So is your argument that the dates don't line up? Is that your argument?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me? Is that your argument? Your argument is basically that the dates don't line up, right? That
these are questions.
These say, yeah, they're questions. I'm asking you.
Okay.
So is your argument overwhelmingly, because it sounds like what you're going with, is that these apes clearly predated Adam and Eve? Is that your argument?
Well, no, well, absolutely. That's one argument. That's not an argument, but that is a fact.
Okay, can you get to your argument, brother? Because right now we haven't done nothing but spin wheels. Can you kind of get to what you want to contend with, so that I'm not just lost? Because right now you're just making a bunch of statements about what you believe to be ape people.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that what you're considering to be apes were actually humanoid in Africa long before any Adam and Eve, long before anything that you're talking about.
So you're going long before.
2.3
so you're going
million,
with the time argument.
Minimum 2.3 million.
How do you date those? Okay, where are you getting those dates?
Okay, are you familiar? Okay, you talked about radiation dating, or I forgot what you said, but
radiometric dating.
Radiometric. I'm sorry, but then you also talked about. I'm sorry. Carbon-14 dating, but you never talked about potassium argon dating. That's how
radiometric dating.
Potassium argon dating is very exact. What does potassium? No, but you're misstating that. What does potassium? What does argon? What does potassium turn into?
They all have the.
It turns into argon,
brother. Okay, and and we can show you that when volcano eruptions happen, which is supposed to reset the argon, that they give wildly inconsistent dates. So again, when they use potassium and argon dating on items of known age, it doesn't work. The one that they usually say when you said it's the best, it's actually not. That would be the zircon crystals, and that would be uranium to lead. That's the gold standard, because zircon is supposed to resist lead. So any lead found in it is automatically assumed to be from the uranium. So
let's switch up a little bit.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me just land this, and I'll let you go.
Oh, you got it.
What I said earlier was every radiometric dating technique, even the ones that you're using now, has the same fundamental flaws. 1, they assume the parent material. 2, they assume the decay rate. And 3, they assume that it's in a closed system.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Let's switch up a little bit. Instead of those dating techniques, let's go to mitochondrial DNA. Now, if every female on the planet goes back to Lucy, or her real name is Dignesh, at 2.3 million in mitochondria. So now that's accurate and effective. And that goes back to over 2 million years.
That's not true at all.
How are you going to slip out of that?
That's not true. Because it's not, what you just said is not true. It's pretty easy to slip out when you state something that's factually inaccurate.
Well, when you say
Eve
that,
goes back to mitochondrial Eve. You got 2 different calculations. You got pedigree calculations and substitution calculations. Substitution calculations gets mitochondrial Eve out to 150,000 years ish, not millions. 150. That you can say 200,000. I'll grant you 200, not millions. Hundreds of thousands, not millions. And then you got pedigree calculations. So what they do is they look at the mitochondrial DNA and they look at the mutation rate. With substitution calculations, they look at a fixed item within the mitochondrial DNA, and then they assume or infer that this used to be mutations, and therefore it took 10,000 years to become fixed within the DNA. Right? That's how they get those calculations. That's how they get it out to 100,000. Then you got pedigree calculations. Now I can give you the papers if you'd like, but pedigree calculations goes off the known, testable, observable mutation rate. It was Iceland or Greenland, one of those, where they got they've done this on tens of thousands of people, where they've tested the people and then their quote unquote lineage, right, their children and their grandparents and grandchildren, so forth and so on, to actually get a known, testable, observable mutation rate. And that calculation, called the pedigree calculation, gets mitochondrial Eve to about 6,000 years. So here's the funny thing about it is, science is things that we can test and observe. the testable and observable calculation rates that we can do on DNA, the mitochondrial that we can look at, test, and observe, gets mitochondrial Eve to about 6,000 years, which is what the Bible claims. And then you got substitution calculations, which you have to infer, and that gets you to 100,000 years. So which one do you think is the one that we should go with?
Let me answer like this. You just contradicted yourself because you said that there were a race of people before Adam and Eve. And if that's the case, well, maybe it wasn't you, maybe it was the guy on there before. That's okay. You guys sounded alike. But my point is, the Bible does actually say that. Okay, that there was a race of people before Adam and Eve. Now let me ask you. You're blocking me. You're not actually. You wanted opposition, but now you're blocking it. I think you think I'm making this up, so you're blocking it. If you just let me finish my sentence,
I'm trying.
If you allow me to finish my sentence.
Nope, you got to contend with the argument, man. I will let you
go
wherever you want.
Okay.
But see, here's the issue. Let me show you what just happened.
Okay. You got it.
You said mitochondrial DNA goes out to millions of years. I said no, substitution pedigree calculations. And then I said, what do you think? And you went, hey, there were people living before Adam and Eve. You literally just went, squirrel. Look at that
Those
squirrel.
tests were in opposition of the science that proved that mitochondrial DNA existed. You're talking about bought and paid for science. That's all you're talking about. And you've learned it well, and I'm glad. But it doesn't add up because you're saying, let me preface it this way. You're saying that the flood was 4006 BC. Adam and Eve were 6000 BC, right? That's what you said, right?
Yeah, Adam and Eve.
Come on, big guy.
Bible dates, if you.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. But hold on one second. I want you to explain yourself because you've already said it. So now what you're saying is that since 4006 BC, every race on the planet has evolved. So from Adam's children, the Chinese have evolved. The Africans have evolved. In every single race on this planet.
All right,
and you're also saying
I don't know
I know. That's what you have to.
Yeah, I know. No disrespect. I'm just going to move on. I don't know where you're going. You're really frazzled. I don't want to sound disrespectful to you whatsoever. I try to show love and share Christ with people up here. That's really what I want to do. But brother, you're just all over the place. I thought we had a great conversation with mitochondrial Eve. We had some contention, and then you just went somewhere else that we didn't go. You're starting to go to pre-Adamite societies. That has nothing to do with what we were talking about, man. Come on, brother. I need you to focus, guys. If you're coming up, I need you to focus. True Dragon D, what's up, big dog?
Hey, chillin', man. My question was for the last guy, but you booted him. So I was just going to ask him, why do we have to use squares for circles and pancakes for shingles? That didn't make no sense.
I mean, he was all over the place, man. I didn't know. I thought we were doing good with mitochondrial Eve, and then he just bounced.
I've been listening to your live, and not one time have you said that there was people living before Adam and Eve, and he made that claim that you said that. I was lost with it. He made up an argument so he could fight against it. I was confused. Squirrel.
Yeah, frazzle brain, man. Squirrel,
yeah.
Exactly.
All right, well, I'll get the answer from him later.
All right, man. Sorry, I appreciate you.
Bye.
Danny, what's up, man?
What's up? You said you don't believe in macroevolution, but you believe in microevolution?
Yes, sir.
Macroevolution is just microevolution over and over again, over millions of years.
Well, that's
so
what
hard to
they
understand
won't say,
about
but
that.
I mean, because it's not true.
That
it's
is
not true. That's what's hard to understand about it.
By a simple
you just
Google
making a claim and me making a
that's what it
claim.
means. That's what it means.
Well, I mean, it was an evolutionary biologist that come up with the term micro and macro. So I'm sorry that you guys don't like it now, but it is the correct term to use within evolutionary biology. So I'm sorry that you guys don't like it because y'all try to get out of showing
what it is.
So
okay,
the definition was created by micro and macroevolution was created. That definitions, those words were created by an evolutionary biologist. So I am correct in using them in evolution. You want me to give you his name?
Just because he made the word, what's your point?
My point is that I am correct in using it. So you are incorrect when you come up and saying that I'm incorrect for using it. That they're not just the same thing. You have to prove that. I'm not just going to concede that because you come up here and said it. I need evidence.
Well, we could talk about evidence with the flood.
Oh, you want to go to the flood now? Okay.
A global flood will leave behind a thick sediment covering the entire Earth. That's undeniable.
Yep.
And it does not exist anywhere.
Sure it does. You see this right here? This layer, this This is the geologic column.
Yeah, that's
See
completely
these
fake.
layers?
I've done research on
You can
this.
see this on the side of Grand Canyon where you see all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Do you know
just
what
like
causes
AI
these
picture
layers?
to me. I've researched this. That's just an
I
AI
know it's
picture.
an AI picture, but it represents. You've researched it. It's just an AI picture. Danny, if you want to contend with an argument, brother, I'll have you up here. But I got too many people watching and too many people
Yeah,
waiting for you
just
to come up here and be
you
silly.
don't want to listen to facts because you're
Okay. All
delusional.
right. Well, I
But
know. I'm trying to show you something, and then I can't get you to contend because you're like, that's an AI picture. I've studied AI pictures. You're clearly not intelligent enough to have a conversation with, so I'm just going to not waste my time. World, what's up, man?
Trying to stay out of trouble. My
I
question
hear you, brother.
is,
I hear you.
what is pre-trib? I don't understand that part.
Yeah, no problem. It's talking about the rapture. So in Second Peter, it actually says that in the Bible, it says in the end times they will be willing. This is where I get my name from. Giving you a little background. It says in the end times they will be willingly ignorant of three things. They will be willingly ignorant of the creation. They will be willingly ignorant of the flood and the coming judgment. So it means that as we start to get closer to the end of time, the Bible literally says this, that people will be willingly ignorant. That means that they're stupid on purpose. That we
Already
see
seeing
evidence
it,
for the
brother.
flood.
Already seeing it.
Yeah. So the pre-trib is a pre-tribulation rapture. So there's pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, and things of this nature. I clearly take the position that the Bible does not teach a pre-tribulation rapture.
Okay. I just didn't know what it was.
I'm a pre-wrath guy.
I understood the first two premises. I just didn't understand that one.
I got you. You got anything else, man?
No, that's it for me. Thanks. I
Hey,
appreciate
man,
it.
God bless, brother. Yeah, man,
too.
appreciate you coming. Right, all right. Yeah, good conversation. All right, let's see. You got Cash. Oh, he must have left. He's not coming up. I do not need. He's not coming up. Now he's coming up. Do not need. You on stage, brother. What's up?
Okay, there you go. So basically, my statement is going to be: don't you think that God could have used the flood? Like, if His words become reality, why would evolution not be like? Okay, there you go. Have you ever seen a movie that was? It was a while ago, maybe in 2016, where it shows a demonstration through a computer, and the image comes out as a sped up version of the creation of the world. So my assumption is, why does there have to be two separate sides fighting each other, and why can't it just be something in the middle, a best of both worlds?
You said flood. I think you meant, could God use evolution? Is that what you meant?
Oh, there you go. Yes.
Yeah. So could God? Yeah, God could. I mean, God could do anything He wanted to. So the contention is could God have used evolution? And yes, but it just wouldn't be the God that I serve because He said He did it another way. So could a quote deity use evolution if they wanted to? Sure. It just would be another religion. It wouldn't be my religion. So if you're asking me about the Christian God, did He use evolution? No.
How so? No.
Well, because for example, like again, let me explain. I do believe microevolution. So when I say does God use evolution? Yeah, He uses micro. That's already within the genetic code. But clearly we're talking about monkey to man, right? So that's the kind of evolution called macro. That's what we're talking about.
Oh, yes.
So did God do it that way? Well, no. Let's take a look at Genesis when He says that God created the earth, right? It says God created the earth on day 1. It said He created the sun on day 4. The evolution says the exact opposite. It says the sun was here first and then the planets. Evolution teaches that reptiles turned into birds. The Bible says the birds were made before the reptiles. Evolution teaches that the sun was here, then the planet, then the plants. The Bible says that the plants were created the day before the sun. So you got a problem. These two things they cannot coexist with each other. The Bible says that nothing unalived until Adam sinned, and obviously evolution teaches that millions of things had to unalive to get Adam here. So those two things are literally diametrically opposed to each other. They cannot go hand in hand. One of them is wrong. One of them is right.
Yes. Do you believe that all people that believe in evolution have the same preconceived and or learned idea of evolution? Yes or no?
Man, that's hard, man. It just no, because I mean, people believe all kinds of crazy stuff about evolution, and I have different conversations with different people all the time.
Yes. Okay, thank you. That was great.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen, brother. The reason why I do this is because, one, I want to strengthen the faith of the Christians. That's why I do this. If you're a Christian, I want to show you that the Bible is literally true, scientifically accurate, and there's no reason to not trust what God said he did scientifically. And number two is, if you're not saved, I want to get you saved. So what do you know about Christ, man?
Oh, so in my own personal experience, I know it's supposed to be a relationship where Jesus is the mediator between me and God. Jesus is the physical vessel that held God's spirit. I have a little bit like confusions or lack of clarity, but that's just a personal thing that I could just go read the Bible and have the answers. That's what I have to offer. If there's anything you want to add, or just
do you
say
believe?
goodbye.
Do you believe that Jesus is God?
I believe he's more of a vessel. I think the name of Jesus is where that separates all other religions. Like, here's God, his name is Jesus, and that's the power. So that's my point of view. And
Let me ask you a little bit more specifically. Do you believe that God took on flesh, came to this earth, unalived for your sins, and then rose again on the third day? Do you believe that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, man.
All right,
Well, like I
thank
said,
you.
give me a follow if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer them. I might not know the answers, but I'll do my best.
Okay, thank you.
All right, man. God bless.
God bless.
Yes, sir. J Gear 84, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Hanging in there, brother.
Yeah, good for you, man.
What you got?
Yeah, actually, you know what? I don't have shit.
Thanks. Sports World, what's up, brother?
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hanging in there, brother. Hanging in there.
Hey, good. I only have a few minutes, but I wanted to ask, and I know that probably I apologize in advance. I'm sure you answered a million times. But pre-trib isn't biblical. Where do you land on your eschatology? What is your belief about what will happen in end times? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, no problem. Post-tribulation, pre-wrath. So some people call that mid-trib, but I don't like to give definitions away. So I think it's after the tribulation, but before the wrath.
Okay. Have you? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
No, yeah. Have you studied much? I've been studying the word for quite a few years, and I'm not convinced, honestly, of grew up pre-trib because everybody was. I found that less compelling as I've studied more and read more. I really do find a lot of truth in. Have you heard of partial preterism? Probably.
Yeah.
That a lot of the book. Yeah, obviously, this is your eschatology's on your back page, so obviously you know that. But I find it pretty compelling, and I find it for some reasons that are not probably shouldn't be at the fore of making my decision. But it does seem interesting that perhaps the early part of Revelation was met in the person of Nero. It's an interesting thing. I think that with your post tribulation rapture, you've avoided one of my other second objections, which is that it seems really Western that God wouldn't allow us to struggle or suffer is the reason that we have to be raptured out before the tribulation. That just doesn't square with most of the scriptures for me, right? And so obviously you've excluded that objection that I have. I do find some other compelling evidence that perhaps that they thought Nero was the Antichrist referred to in the early part of Revelation. I studied some textual criticism, and I'm certain that you might be aware of a Latin variant they found, a very early variant that has the name of Nero as rather than 666 6 is in the Greek, it has it as 611, which would be the Latin version of the word Nero. So that doesn't mean that it is, but it finds that people early during this time thought, at least there were some who thought that it might be Nero. Well, what's your thoughts on that, if you have any?
Well, I think that there is typologies in the Bible, and I think that when Nero and then Antioch come in and destroyed the temple and sacrificed a pig on the altar and all these things, I think that was a typology of the Antichrist, meaning that this is what's going to come, but he wasn't the Antichrist because one, he didn't set himself up in the temple to be glorified as God, and the Antichrist does that. So that was Antioch. He set up a picture of Zeus in the temple and sacrificed a pig. So it is true that he did a type of abomination of desolation, but he did not fulfill the prophecy because obviously he didn't do it. And then secondly, we understand that after the abomination of desolation is a period of great tribulation, and then immediately after that is the wrath. So, all right, so partial preterism has got to explain the gap of time in the 70th week of Daniel. So the 70th week of Daniel is a 7-year time period. So how do we have half of it start and then stop, and then there's going to be another part of it that start later? Yeah, partial preterism, I think, is just full preterism, and partial preterism is just, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but kind of weird. They have a couple of verses that they use to stand solid, but when you just look at it in context, like when they go to Jesus and ask him, when are you coming back and what are the signs? When are you coming back and what are the signs? And Jesus literally tells them, he says, he's talking about the end of the world, because that's the question that they ask. And he says that this generation will not pass until these things are complete. So preterists take that to mean, well, that's the generation he's talking to. So therefore it had to have happened, because he literally says this generation will not pass. But they're asking him about the end of the world. So when Jesus says, he's talking about the generation as to when this starts, the context is he's talking about the end of the world. And we know, according to the book of Daniel, that is a 7-year time period from start to finish. So clearly, when it starts, that generation will not pass, because it's only 7 years. And 7 years is not a generational time span.
I would agree with your exegesis of this generation, what that actually means. It's not the generation that's before him. I would agree with that. I would also put a stark line, a harsh line between partial and full preterism, because I believe full preterism is a liberty that I couldn't take.
You never go full preterist.
Yep. Pardon?
I say you never go full preterist. Everybody knows.
Hey, I would never do that, right? So let me ask you this, and if it's okay if it is this for you? Is your eschatology, is this a central doctrine? Is this something that we need to believe on or agree upon as believers?
No, it's not. It's not a faith. I mean, it's not a salvation issue.
Awesome, man. Well, good, man. Hey, I appreciate what you're doing, buddy. I've listened to you a couple of times when I was sliding through, and man, I appreciate the stance you take. And I actually am going to compliment you, most importantly, on not letting a caller get away without evangelizing. What a great way to share our faith, man. This platform is notoriously pretty offensive, and so for Christians to share our truth in a way that's kind, as the Bible says we should, and we can't compromise the truth, but we must do it in a loving fashion, or it's unbiblical. So I appreciate the way you shared your faith, brother.
Thank you, man.
Hey, first name's Jeff. You ever need anything, man, holler at us, brother. God bless.
All right, brother. All right, God bless. God bless. Thank you. All right. Thank you for the compliments. I appreciate the compliments. It makes me get emotional. Appreciate it. Real quick, before I bring up the next guest, let me go ahead and say this. I do appreciate everyone that gives the stickers and the stars and stuff like that. Sometimes I'm right in the middle of a conversation, so I wish TikTok had like a thing like YouTube to where they could kind of go to the side and then you come up and thank everybody, but it's not like that. So if somebody gives a sticker, it shows up and then it goes away, and I don't have the time to thank anybody. So anybody that sends money by giving me the stickers or goes to my PayPal or anything like that, I appreciate it. It doesn't go unnoticed, so thank you. Clearly from the bottom of my heart, I do appreciate it. All right, let's see what we got. All right, that individual's gone. Let's go Moose. All right, Moose is gone. Danny Space. All right, guys, I've cleared out the people requesting up list because I had a lot. So, and a lot of them appear to be gone. So if you want to come up now, now's the time to request because I cleared that out. So. I hear them now. But anyway, going back to that, I just want to reiterate again, thank you guys for all the support. Channel's growing. And so you guys just watching is more than enough for me. I do appreciate it. Even you guys that vehemently disagree with me, I am happy that you guys are watching too. Sometimes my patience runs a little thin, but I do appreciate you guys too. As long as you follow my rules in the live, you're welcome to stay and disagree with me as much as you want. The Pearl, what's up?
Hey, so I believe that The Big Bang is God's word that created everything.
Okay.
I believe that it's just scientifically backed. We just don't know how to put it in those terms.
Do you think that God, like some people believe that the Big Bang is like the background cosmic radiation is a result of him speaking and the creation?
Exactly.
I would agree with that. But
Yes.
do you believe that he created, that he used evolution, meaning that he made man as man, or did he make monkey and then it turned into man?
I believe that, and there's proof of this, that there were prehistoric beings and their skeletals were very different than ours. And there's proof of them existing, and that they existed at certain ages. So I believe that there was a growth of the brain in this process through the original human line. Like, we were set here, we just didn't grow into what we were until we had a full human brain.
Okay, so when God said that he made Adam from the dust of the earth, you think that's just like a euphemism, or?
No, that's true, because every cell in our being is proven to exist in our universe.
Well, how can that be true at the same time that if God made Adam from the dust, then how was he a pre-ape?
I wouldn't say a pre-ape. I would say a humanoid of a different skeletal and brain structure.
Yeah, so then God did not make him from the dust of the field, then, did he? He actually came from an ape.
No. No.
Do you see how those two things can't be true at the same time?
Well, the thing is that there's very different distinct species that were placed here on Earth. And we're one of those. It's separate from a monkey. It is a humanoid. It is human in flesh. But it did not have the brain structures that we do now.
All right, well, let me ask you this. Was the sun here before the planet, or was the planet here before the sun?
Well, I'd have to lean on Carl Sagan for that.
So he believes that the sun was here first. So the Bible's wrong when it says that the sun was created on day 4 and that the earth was created on day 1. Bible got that wrong?
No. And that he's addressing Jesus Christ. That he knew what was going to happen from the beginning.
Did anything die, or correction, let me use TikTok language. Did anything unalive before Adam, like these monkeys that were trying to slowly evolve, did they unalive over time?
As they adapted to a structure of brain that allowed them to not use the earth as anything but a picking ground, basically, and stumbling across their meals and saying, "Hey."
Man, that's a really long answer to let me know that something either.
What I'm saying is that the brain structures weren't like us. They didn't just look at everything and say, "Hey, I know exactly what to do with this."
I know.
They
I'm
had
just trying to walk you. I'm just trying to walk you through. I just ask, did any of these apes unalive before Adam got here?
There were no apes. Are we talking about humanoids that
did anything at all, did any life unalive before Adam got here?
Well, of course.
Okay, the Bible says that nothing unalived until Adam sinned. So I guess the Bible got that wrong. The reason why I'm showing you this and walking you through this is because you have a belief system that is so far antithetical to the Bible that, and I please take this in love, that you are not a Christian. You are a spiritualist who believes a lot of stuff that's antithetical to the Bible, and then you're trying to tie that into the Bible when the Bible says the exact opposite of what you're saying.
The Bible says exactly that Jesus Christ was our Savior and died for our sins. And it started from the very beginning of the Bible. Okay?
And Jesus said Adam was the first, not a monkey.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's a humanoid, not a monkey, of a very different structure, very different, but with a very different than the human that exists today with the brain structures that we have. We have learned from the planet how to live and exist as we do today. Back then, we had more simple brain structures. We just picked off of the earth and said, hey, I'm hungry, I'll eat. You know? It wasn't like what we think now with everything that we have now.
All right. Well, I mean, everybody's welcome to their own belief system. So, do you have any additional questions or anything you'd like to bring up for me?
No. Nice
well, listen,
talk.
I appreciate you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming up and sharing that with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you have a great day.
Thank you, man. You too.
Bye.
Thank you. All right. Good conversation, guys. Good conversations. People don't always have to believe like we do. Let's see. Night, what's up, man? Nightmare?
Hello.
What's up, man?
Okay, I just kind of wanted to point something out. That I feel like both sides are honestly misusing the definition of science.
Okay.
Science, at least, I'm going to see if I can say this from memory without having to look it up. There are multiple definitions, really, but this is the one I trust the most. It would be knowledge gained through careful systematic investigation by direct observation of the physical natural world using the 5 natural senses and must be observable, measurable, and repeatable. Neither sides of the argument really are that. So I feel like
I think everything that I've said when I apply it to science, I think that it is.
What I mean by that is the very beginning itself. The Big Bang does not support science, but technically neither does God, because both are through faith. That's something evolutionists and atheists also don't like to agree with, is that they have really, honestly, it's almost more faith than Christians do, just due to the fact that there's less evidence.
Yeah.
So, I didn't really have much of a contention. I kind of just wanted to point that out.
Well, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
What's with the face thing, man? What's your photo there? Is that what you got? Talking to you, Nightmare.
What do you mean?
Is that a satanic symbol? Because it's really small. I can't see it. It looks like the goat.
Oh, no, it's not. It's, I would probably take too long to explain, but it's not actually. It's not religion. I'm not a Satanist, no.
Okay. All right, man. Well, if you don't have anything else, give me a follow. And if you have any additional questions later down the line, man, I'd love to share Christ with you.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you. Well, I just invited that guy, but he didn't come up. All right. Big gifter, Jason. Let me say thank you, because I appreciate the stickers and stuff you gave while we were waiting. Thank you for that, sir. I appreciate it. Everyone that supports the ministry. Jason's probably one of my longest listeners. I know Mr. Allen is probably one of my longest listeners. So I've been doing this now for not even a year yet, and I'm growing, and I appreciate it. And it's all because of you guys that enjoy my content. So thank you all for following. So eventually, I plan on taking the gifts that you guys give me. I appreciate it, and I like letting you guys know what I do with it, so it goes back into the ministry. I think Christians, when they're given support, should show people what they're doing with the support that they've been giving. So I've tried to go live and stuff on YouTube, but I'm putting my videos and stuff over there on YouTube and Rumble. But obviously, since I have been doing this less than a year, I'm not big or anything over there, so I can go live over there. I just don't get enough interest when I go live for me to do anything on it. So eventually, I would like to be able to start going live on different platforms too. That way, I can get out a little bit more. So eventually, I will do that as I grow, and that comes from the support from you guys. So thank you very much from that. So hopefully, I'll be able to start stretching out. I do have maybe some exciting news coming up here. I hope to be able to. I know a larger creationist TikTok account come in yesterday and said that we might be trying to put together a co-host. So hopefully I'll be able to put that out into the future, that we can start doing a co-host. Come on, not a black. You don't be weird in the comments, man. So anyway, hopefully I'll be able to do a co-host here pretty soon. All right, I'm just gonna block you. Just want to be weird. So anyway, like I said, hopefully I'll be able to do a co-host here pretty soon, and we can continue to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I can break into the debate world. Mr. Allen does take the cake, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to see you in a debate. Yeah, a structured debate would be pretty cool. Not a whole lot of people out there. The one guy, I did an atheist thing on my channel. He challenged me to come back in his room, so I actually challenged him to a structured debate. He's the only person, and he never got back with me. Obviously, I don't think he wants one. But yeah, I just, if it comes, it comes. We'll see how it goes. Michael, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Hanging in there, brother.
Yeah, so this is a fascinating topic. Do you hold that that the Bible got it right, that the earth is, or the world is 6,000 years old, give or take?
Yeah, it's not something that I usually try to contend with. I mean, I will. I'm not afraid of it, but yeah, I do.
And how do we get around the whole carbon dating issue?
Well, carbon dating only goes out to 50,000, but I understand you mean radiometric. So some of the other radiometric datings goes out to the billions. And you got the same three fundamental flaws in every radiometric dating technique. You have to assume the parent material, you have to assume the decay rate remains constant, and then you have to assume that it's in a closed system, meaning that if there was leaching or something involved. Now, if I was to grant you that those things are clear, the science is it works perfectly, then you would have to concede that the carbon-14 found in dinosaur bones means that it's less than 50,000 years old. So it's kind of like a catch-22. The things that they want it to get billions of years on are the things that they accept, but when it shows a young Earth, they just throw it out.
Yeah, I always thought it was fascinating that, I'm not an expert in this area at all. I only know what probably most people have heard, but I always thought it was really interesting that, as far as I can tell, since there's been no experiments that have lasted 100,000 years or more, nobody can really prove the accuracy of it, right? So it's a model that we're sort of taking at face value, but I never quite understood how scientists felt so sure that the timelines were accurate.
Yeah, it's the amount of assumptions. Somebody just mentioned uranium into lead, and that's true. The thing is that when uranium decays into lead, helium is released. So whenever you look at the zircon crystals, they will always tell you the amount of helium, or the amount of zircon and the amount of lead found, and it gives you quote unquote billions of years according to them. They don't tell you that the helium found in it shows that it's only been decaying for about 4,000, 6,000 years or whatever, because it doesn't fit their model. So you should expect that the helium would disperse more than what it has. It shows about 6,000, 4,000 years of radiometric decay. So, but they don't tell you that because it doesn't fit their model. They just sweep that aside. They only want to tell you about the parts that actually agree with their ages. They don't want to tell you that the nitro or the helium found when it decayed is only about 6,000 years worth of decay.
That's really, really interesting. I mean, it would line up well with, I mean, if we assume that man tried their best to kind of write down what happened when, and the Bible was earnest people, saying this person lived and then that person lived and then that person lived, it would be great if if we then had a sort of a written overview of the timeline of man, which coincided with what was written down. How then, let's see here. When they talk about stars and the time that it's taken light from those stars to get here to our eyeballs, and they say that it's taken a very, very long time. Does that throw a monkey wrench into the formula, or?
No, it's actually one of the things that helps prove the Bible. Excuse me. It's called the Doppler effect. Are you familiar?
I've heard the term, but I'm not familiar with how it applies to starlight and light years and things of that nature.
Sure. So just to help catch up everybody, it's called the Doppler effect, and it happens in waves. It happens with sound and it happens with light. So excuse me for doing this silly little scenario here, but it'll help you. It'll help show you what it is. So imagine you're on a racetrack and the cars are going around in a circle. As the car is coming towards you, it makes a completely different audible sound as when it leaves you. So as the car's coming towards you, as the car's leaving you, yeah. The reason why it sounds deeper as it's coming towards you is because the waves between you and the car are compressed because the car's coming at you, right? As the car's leaving you, the waves are stretched out, right? So this makes a completely different audible sound. The same thing happens with light because light's a wave. So if an object is coming towards you in space, then the light that is bouncing off of the object to your eyes is compressed. The object is moving towards you, so it's compressed light. That makes it look blue. If the object is moving away from you, then the light between you and the object is stretched. It's called the red shift. So everywhere they look out in the planet, or in the space, excuse me, in every direction they look, they see what they call the red shift. So when they deduce that because of the red shift, they imagine that the universe is expanding. So then therefore, if you play the clock backwards, that's where the Big Bang come from, right? But it's something like 8 times the Bible says, and it says it a lot, very specifically, that God stretched out the stars as if you would a cloth over a table, which is exactly the way Einstein actually shows his theory of general relativity, that space-time is like a cloth and it sits down in it and it stretches space-time. But that's a prediction that the Bible can make because it says it so many times that God took the stars and he stretched them out. And that's exactly what we see, meaning the stars were here. When he made them, he stretched them out into their places. So they really may be millions or billions of light years away, but the light is not taking millions or billions of years to get here because the star started here and then got stretched out. So the light that we're seeing is stretched light.
That makes sense.
And if the star is if the light between us and the star is stretched, and it really is a million light years away, then we'll never be able to see it not be stretched light because it would now take the non-stretched light a million years to get here.
Do you think that this information, do you think that this could ever be taught at schools, and what would the criteria be to start introducing this as something that people can study? Because I can speak for myself. This conversation probably didn't happen at all growing up. It's not something that people are comfortable teaching or discussing.
So I always say this in two different ways, because I'm not a scientist, but I do consider myself a very analytical person. So my religious side said, yes, teach it in school because clearly it's right, and this is God. And the more people we teach Christian ethics to and science to and the Bible to, then obviously the world's going to be a better place. So that's my overarching answer. But if I was going to be conservative as an American and say, well, we shouldn't teach any religious viewpoint in school, then okay, don't teach evolution. Evolution is not a science, it's a religious viewpoint, right? It's not testable and observable. You have a deity. Your deity is time. Anytime it can't happen, you give time the attributes that only a deity could do. Well, we don't see anything turning into another kind of animal. Well, you just sprinkle some time on that bad boy and it'll happen. So on one hand, I say, yes, obviously we should teach Christianity. But if I'm being an objective American and say, okay, we shouldn't teach, quote unquote, any religion in a public setting, okay, don't teach evolution. We should teach reading, math, and arithmetic in school. We shouldn't be teaching religious viewpoints of any kind.
Yeah, or I mean, maybe a first step would be to, if you're going to present, carbon dating, or if you're going to present the theory of billions of years old, maybe also offer it alongside of that and say, hey, look, here's a different view, and here are some credible sources that say that this is just as as likely or more likely than the evolution slash. The
theoretical stuff should be taught in colleges, no problem. You can start to get off into a lot of the theoretical or taking the leap stuff in college. In schools, we should not teach our children anything that's going to be classified as science. Science has a definition. It is literally testable and observable. So, carbon-14 dating to millions of years, that's not testable or observable. So we should teach our kids science. Hold on a second. Duder, wasn't that you in here yesterday that was claiming about the DNA? I don't want to sound disrespectful to you, but that was you that was up here yelling and screaming at me, wasn't it? About the DNA? Then you got mad and just left? I think that was you that was up here. Now you're back in my life. What'd you leave yesterday for? Is it because, you were really screaming at me that DNA didn't exist in dinosaurs? Wasn't you? Okay. You look like the guy, so if that wasn't you, then I apologize. I don't want to be rude to you. So I sincerely apologize. I thought it was you. I apologize, Michael. Go ahead.
Oh, well, it's interesting that you're having this conversation now, because I think a lot of voices have been silenced for quite some time. I can recall when you'd get shamed pretty hard if you were a creationist. I remember that era, and you sort of weren't allowed to think about it or talk about it, and that's probably one of the most anti-scientific things I could think of, is how much sort of ridicule and shame anyone who would suggest that the Bible got it right and creation's only 6,000 some odd years old was mocked pretty hard. So I think it's interesting that the conversation's opening back up again. Do you know of any thought leaders in this space that are, I don't know, earning more earning more legitimacy within the scientific world, that have published papers or peer-reviewed studies?
No, I usually go to the secular scientists, to be honest with you. A lot of them, even though a lot of them you have to read past the headline, obviously, because you have to understand they have a bias. But even in the secular paper, a lot of them don't just outright, quote unquote, lie. So let me preference that. They have an agenda, but they tell you what the science is. You just got to know how to read past all the fancy wording. Let me give you an example. Mary Schweitzer. right? She's not a young Earth creationist. She's the one that's finding soft tissue and DNA in dinosaur bones. If you Google right now, most of the people come up here that tell me, we know how soft tissue lasts for 65 million years. It's called iron cross-linking. Because if you literally just go to Google right now and say, how does soft tissue last in dinosaurs for 65 million years? Google is going to tell you iron cross-linking. But then you just have to ask it for the source. Where are they getting this source at? Eventually, it'll take you to the paper by Mary Schweitzer where they did the iron cross-linking study. Now, Mary Schweitzer unequivocally, without a doubt, believes that dinosaurs are millions and millions of years old. But in the paper that she's writing about this, she has to admit that we can't, even though the paper is trying to prove that this can last for 65 million years and they have a hypothesis, they word it in the nicest possible ways that they can to make it look like their theory is legit. But at the end of the day, the paper ultimately admits that they don't have the mechanism to get it out to 65 million years. So I can go to the paper and show them, well, the paper right here literally says that this does not fit our current degradation models. So I can usually show them by their own papers. I don't have to go to a creationist website. Not that I'm afraid of it. Sometimes creationists do the better science. For example, carbon-14 being found in dinosaur bones. Secular scientists don't even test for carbon-14 because it's not supposed to be there. So if you're finding carbon-14 in dinosaur bones, that research is probably coming from a creationist.
Yeah, my understanding is that one of the things that archaeologists and scientists use the Bible for was for the flood, and that's one example of where I think the science sort of matched up, where they said yes, there was most likely a global flood, and the timeline that the Bible says is maybe somewhat accurate, and there are, so that seems to be one thing where it's like the biblical community or the Christian community and the science community sort of have somewhat of certain agreement that there probably was a global flood, and it would be really interesting if they could match up on the timeline too. That seems pretty important. Question for this: what do you call this field of study? I mean, this new way of looking at carbon dating, this new way of timing the age of the universe.
I just study a lot, man. I would consider myself a young Earth creationist, and I just study a lot.
Young Earth, creationist. Yeah, that seems to make sense. I mean, it's basically the union of the Bible as accurate, as scientifically accurate.
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder. You see, there's still some people in the comments talking about all the floods were local. A lot of scientists, the evidence for the flood is literally so overwhelming that they can't just throw it aside. So then they try to come up with excuses and say, well, it was a bunch of local floods. A bunch of local floods. I can go to the Chinese flood, and they said that a man named Nua created a boat and took two of every different kind of animals on it. Or I can go to the Hawaiians, where it was Nu'u created a boat and put all of the two different kinds of animals on it. This story is so ingrained and repeated throughout all of the different cultures in the world that the evidence is so overwhelming that either they ignore it or try to come up with stupid excuses in an effort to, these were all local floods. Yeah, so these individuals, all experiencing local floods, come up with pretty similar names to the individuals and a method to save all of the land animals by taking two of each kind on a boat. That's pretty amazing that they all come up with these. That's what evolutionists would call divergent evolution.
Well, I appreciate the conversation, and sounds like you're doing good work. Sounds like you know your stuff, and I'd be really, I'm going to take some time and try to find maybe some YouTube videos or some other people speaking on the subject. But I think it's fascinating, and thanks for having me up.
Thanks, man. Kent Hovind is a great resource. If you watch a lot of his older debates, very, very, very good. You can find him on YouTube. Kent Hovind.
All right, I'll look him up. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
All the best. Cheers.
All right, brother. God bless. God bless.
God bless. Ciao.
Right. Alex, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? I just came across. Can you hear me?
Yep, I sure can.
Okay. Yeah, good talk. I came across your live, and I just wanted to kind of give you guys a comment or ask you if you've heard or have watched the hydroplate theory by Walt Brown.
I don't know. What was it?
It's called hydroplate theory, and it was it's a theory that was postulated by Dr. Walt Brown. He worked for the U.S. Geological Society. Anyway, there's a six-part video on YouTube. If you just search for hydroplate theory, and it's one of the best explanations for the flood and everything we see here with the Grand Canyon, and talks about even the mammoths found up in the Arctics. The argument is that mammoths are so large that they need. It's ridiculous to think that they lived in an Arctic region eating snow, because they need massive amounts of vegetation. So these were not Arctic elephants; they were more like
they were tropical. They had flowers in their mouth.
Yeah. So the hydroplate theory also talks about those and basically what created the global flood, where so as a Christian, I put the science and the biblical story together. I imagine God created the world, the universe, everything perfect. When you see when you go through the hydroplate theory video, you'll see that there is an image of the world, or the cross section of the earth, where there is a 60-mile mantle of granite. Now below that there is another layer of water, and I think they've also now admit that there is a lot of water underneath the earth. Well,
there's about 2 oceans worth of water underneath the earth now.
Yeah. So what happens? Now this is I gathered this from watching the hydroplate theory and also the flood. So imagine God creates a perfect world, a perfect marble, with the perfect granite ball. So then he tells Adam, he says, don't eat from the tree of good and evil. So Adam, when God comes to Adam, he doesn't curse Adam, he curses the earth. And then he kicks Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden. Well, if God cursed the earth, then there is kind of like a breaking, or this is my theory. This is, you can't find it, but the way I see it is that if there's a 60-mile thick piece of granite between the surface of the earth and the water underneath the earth, and this can be shown in the hydroplate theory, what happens is if you strike a piece of granite, you're going to get a fracture, you're going to get a crack, and it cracks very quickly. So that fracture went all the way down to the below, and what it did is it created a pressure zone for the water under the earth to create superheated water. So over time, which was about 1,000 years after Adam and Eve sinned, the superheated water pressure up to the time of Noah's flood had a chance to open the crack or get enough pressure to release the steam in the form of like a pressure cooker, because it was superheated. So that's where you have all the waters from the deep coming up from the earth, as it said, in the Noah's time. And then in addition to that, you have all these rocks, this granite being flung into space. A lot of what we see on the moon, and when they went to the moon, they brought back moon rocks, and they discovered that a lot of it was from Earth. These were Earth rocks. So how did those Earth rocks get on the moon? Well, they were flung towards the moon by Noah's flood, and I would say that most of those meteors that are in space that do eventually find their way back to Earth as asteroids and meteors came from Earth, because you can see the study on meteors, and they're basically Earth rocks or rocks that were underneath the Earth. So Noah's flood would have expelled all this material out into space. A lot of it comes back through just gravity after.
Yeah, I've heard this too myself, and then that could also, because it flung so much water out into space, also that this could be the reason that Mars actually has a canyon in it, because there would have been so much water that would have come off the planet that it could have sideswiped Mars, and this is what would have caused their canyon. And it does explain the rings around Saturn, because Saturn's rings we know are water ice, and they haven't accumulated enough space dust for them to be millions of years old. They're still nice and white, shiny ice. So it would explain that if the water shot off the planet out into space, sideswiped Mars, caused a canyon, and then Saturn actually picked it up, because Saturn's rings are younger. So I have heard that. I think it's a very interesting theory.
Yeah, and all those craters we see on the moon, most of which are on the side facing the Earth, and even the ones on the other side, because the rocks would have come back, and because of the gravitational pull of of the moon would have hit it on the backside as well. So yeah, all that is kind of illustrated in the hydroplate theory video, and it's really the best explanation for everything that we see, and can observe in the world right now.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming up and telling us about it.
Yeah, appreciate you also bringing this up too.
Yeah, man. Thank you, sir.
Okay, take care. Hey, one more thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
One more thing. This is my own theory also, but I haven't heard anybody else talk about it. But I just want to throw it out there and maybe get the conversation started. The Bible says that that God put Adam to sleep and made Eve. Now the word rib, that's mistranslated in the English version. The original word is tisla, T-S-L-A, sla, and but there's no other translation, or it's never used again in the Bible. So it's a word that's untranslatable. My judgment, when I Googled or asked to translate, it's best translated as building material or lumber. It is the closest form of the word. When we look at the chromosome, the XY chromosome of men and women, everything is the same except the 23rd chromosome. The man is XY and the woman is XX. Um, okay, really quick. Man was created with XX because God would have made him perfect. When he creates Eve, he takes a portion of that X chromosome and he creates a woman out of it, and the man is left with a defective chromosome. Because if you look at the Y chromosome, it's not really a Y. It's like a defective X, or an X chromosome that has been like cut in half. So
Never heard
that's
that.
my, huh?
I said I've never heard that, but okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, yeah. So now man is missing something that he used to have, and woman was taken from him. So that's how the man and woman become complete. Like man gets what was taken from him, and woman gets where she came from.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for sharing that with me, man. I appreciate it.
Okay. Take care, man.
Thank you, sir. You do the same.
Bye.
All right. Bye. See you later. All right, Mr. Allen, if you're still in here, now would be the time for you to pop on up, Mr. Allen. I do appreciate all the support, guys. Like I said before, I always want to do this towards the end is say, yeah, what's up, Tony? Appreciate you guys coming in. I am towards the end of the live. So I go live every Monday and every Thursday. And then I go live after that randomly, just when I can. Like tonight, obviously, it's Friday, so I'm going live tonight just because I can. So maybe I'll be able to go live a little bit more this weekend, maybe not. Just depends when I can. So definitely every Monday and definitely every Thursday. I am starting to grow. Today we had 150 people in here, pretty consistent for a couple hours, it seemed like. So that's good numbers. I appreciate that. I appreciate all the support. So as long as we keep getting good numbers like that, then obviously I may have to look at switching some of the days around. But anyway, right now it's every Monday and it's every Thursday for sure, and then randomly after that when I can. Looking to do some good things here in the future. I know some people talked about they'd like to see me debate, so maybe we'll be able to find some opposition out there one day that I could actually have a structured debate on. But I do say I'm not just probably going to debate just anybody because the debate, you need to, in a structured debate, you need to be able to get information out of it, because the debate is not between the debaters because they're stuck in their position. The debate is for the crowd to get the information and to see whose side won the best, right? So if you like, they talked about people like, and it's really hard to find an atheist debater that's an honest person. Most of your bigger atheist debaters, like Aaron Ra, or like what's the other guy that's on YouTube? Pretty big guy, got millions of subscribers. Him and James Tor and Professor Dave. That's it. If you ever watch that, nobody gets any information out of that because Professor Dave is just constantly the whole time throwing you believe in God, so you're stupid comments. And so because it's just a bunch of ad hominem attacks, it's really hard to watch the debate because it turns into just a poo throwing contest. So that's why it's harder for people in the creation evolution debate community, if you will, to find people to debate on a structured debate, because it usually just diverges into ad hominems. Christians can debate amongst each other about, I've had some friends that debated the pre-wrath, post-wrath. That's two Christians going at it, so they have some decorum. But when you have like an atheist and a religious person, it's very hard to find somebody that actually debates with a willingness to hear both sides of the argument. But hopefully here in the recent future, I got some things worked out where maybe I can get in touch with some other creationists and work some things out so we can do some dual lives and stuff. We're talking about doing that. So channel's growing. I appreciate the support that you guys give. And as always, I usually give Mr. Allen the last word. But Mr. Allen's not in here right now, so I know he's got some surgeries or stuff coming up, so you guys make sure you guys pray for Mr. Allen. I think he said his sister also had a surgery, so we got to keep Mr. Allen in our thoughts and prayers. And I appreciate it. God bless, guys, and I'll see y'all later.